Patreon?
Yes, I already did Patreon. Now I have to hit for Instagram.
MMT game next tomorrow, the day that I leave.
Man, if Tonga wins, I guess whoever wins plays Australia in the
Australia
final.
again. Yeah,
So
yeah, because Australia's undefeated. So big game. It's I mean, hopefully, I mean, I know there's a good. The Tongan crowd always outweigh the New Zealand crowd in the league.
yeah, 100%. And also the Toa Samoa, they lost their first one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
It's tough. It's tough traveling from the southern hemisphere, go literally on the other side of the country, the
and
world.
like I saw a lot of the names on the Toa Samoa team when we looked at it that one other live.
Yeah,
A lot of new players, kind of like the Matematong, a lot of young talent, upcoming talent. I don't know. I don't know if it's because it's not, everybody they want to try out the young talent heading into a World Cup, give the younger guys a shot, see how things work out. I don't know.
Hey, did you see I just saw an article. You know that Talakai guy that plays for the Sharks? He's
Yeah, he
Talakai.
wasn't very happy with Wolfie.
I told you. Wolfie's just more. I told you. Wolfie had a certain amount of guys and he was good at the game, but he was kind of playing little. And it made sense even with the selection against Samoa. I thought it was like we had to have better guys than that. It was a little iffy, but I'm glad.
I chalked it up to being conservative, like saving my guys. But I was like, dude, when you're in the World Cup, you gotta just
one game.
play the game in front of you.
That's fine
All
in the
out.
pool. Finding the pool when you can take the top two. Take the top two. You can be one or two. You're trying to figure out your combinations and which guys you want to be the impact players, but not during the knockout stages. Come on, man. Come on. But yeah, I thought that was funny. I was like, I knew things weren't.
You're the first person I thought of when I saw that video. And
So
he's
apparently
like,
apparently there's two guys. It's him.
Who?
He's a state of origin, and that Golo or no
Gola?
Gola. No, not is it Gola?
Gola?
Yes, that guy. The one that plays, he's state of origin. He plays for the Queensland. I think he's on the which franchise? He's on the Titans. He plays for the Titans.
No, Gola I thought plays for the Eagles, the men.
Not that Gola. It's another big prop guy kind of guy. I'll look it up here.
Okay.
But he played in the state of origin. So we have two state of origin guys
not happy.
They're not happy with just their relationship
maybe that's one of the drivers for Wolf stepping down. Right?
That's good.
Is some of that competition that's coming up.
Yeah. Coming up. I think it's just sometimes when you've been there for a little bit too long, it becomes too stagnant. You just need somebody fresh.
Some new blood, some new energy.
Blood. Yeah.
I have an article of I guess it's a ship in New Zealand. Also got ran into another coral reef or something.
Oh, is this one of those inter-island ferry? There was an inter-island ferry, but that was before the one that sank, that military one.
What's the deal with all the ships, man? You had the one in Maryland here in the U.S. You have the DEI captain in the New Zealand one, the Fiji ship. A lot of ships going on here.
And I've gone on that.
ferry.
A ferry to go from the North Island to the South Island. So dang, I'm just
how long is that? How long is that ferry?
2.5.
2.5 hours. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you see South Island from North Island?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, and I recommend anyone who lives in New Zealand to do that trip. Just do that drive from Auckland, go all the way down to Wellington, and then go and take your car on the ferry, go around the whole
to South Island.
South Island. I mean, once in a lifetime thing. I was glad my wife and I, Sarah and I, were able to do it. So it's
Go see the
pretty
Hobbits.
cool. Yep. I wasn't able to go, and I haven't gone back because I wasn't fully vaccinated. Only my wife
Oh.
went. That was
Auntie
the
Jacinda, Auntie Jacinda put you in
yeah.
timeout.
He said no, I wasn't safe. I was the disease. I was
You
the
were,
disease to society.
yeah. It was a what is it? A pandemic of the unvaccinated is what
Mm,
they said. That's what Joe Biden said.
yeah. Oh, Tua, you are right. It was total Ugola. You're right. He never. I was thinking of the other guy, but yeah, he wasn't a state of origin, but he was a pretty good player, manly.
Mm.
Apparently, he wasn't selected either or put in the.
A lot of people were saying he played fullback.
Mm. And
Um,
he had an okay year, right? This past NRL,
dude, he had the play of the game in the semifinal or the quarterfinal.
and he wasn't so.
Where
And he didn't play in versus Australia, right? I didn't see his name.
no, that's what I
That's a
think. A
little
lot of
weird.
people were saying they were hoping he would be brought in to play fullback.
Mm. Maybe Christian Wolf should have stepped out before this game, man. Jeez, I don't get that. Just
Mm.
yeah, I'm glad he's gone.
Sweet. Let's
Okay.
get this one started. You ready?
Yes.
Let's do it. Welcome everyone to another live digital kava session here on the Polynesian Eyes podcast. We are going live from the northern and the southern hemisphere, just
Let's
like our
go.
ancestors in the Polynesian nation,
We
right? The
everywhere. We
Polynesian
everywhere.
Empire.
Hmm.
You know,
We are
we weren't
everywhere.
we weren't like the Vikings limited to one hemisphere. What made the Polynesians pretty impressive was our ability to go into the northern and southern hemisphere and to navigate. But it's Halloween tonight. You
Happy
know, it's a
Halloween.
little
Happy
yeah, it's a
Halloween.
happy Halloween, even though a lot of people say they don't. I was just as I was getting ready to jump on the program here, I saw I think it was it Tongan Cowboy, the guy
Mm.
on Instagram and
TikTok.
stuff.
Oh,
He does the
Instagram.
Lo'i
Yeah.
Hoshi and stuff.
Yes.
Played for University of Utah. I didn't listen to the video, but I was reading the subtitles, and he was kind of explaining why he doesn't celebrate Halloween, right?
Okay.
And yeah, and then
And
I
you're not a fan,
also,
right? You're
yeah,
not a fan. Well, why is
yeah,
that? Why is that?
I'm just I don't like dressing up. Right to me,
Okay.
it's kind of like a hassle. It's like okay, it's kind
Uh-huh.
of like fakamuna to me, I
Mm.
guess. To do Halloween. It's like the
Yeah.
kids like it. It's like oh,
Yeah.
but when I see the adults do it, it's like man, maybe I'm just a party pooper, mushy. But what about you? Are you a Halloween fan?
It's more for the kids. For adults, I do kind of tease cringe when adults want to be part of it and do it. Not my thing. So no, you're not wrong there, too. If you're like for adults, do it. Not really, right? But kids, I do enjoy it. For the kids to have a good time because when we left Tonga to do uh, the trip, to live in America, Halloween was a big deal, and I was still a kid, and I enjoyed it. So I can see why the kids enjoy it. But yeah, did you get the reason why Tongan Cowboy doesn't like it, or you weren't
No,
able to catch
I didn't. I didn't really. I was because I was just kind of prepping for the show, right? And it
it?
was just one of the videos. It looks like Uku Jamie says no candy for him. Are you saying no candy for me because I'm a party pooper here? And then he also says he loves scary movies. What about you, Masi? Are you a scary movie fan?
Nah, I'm not.
Yeah,
Not.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it, right? But I'm not a huge. If the storyline's cool, right? If the storyline's cool, it'd be great. I don't mind it. But Clyde Moore,
Okay.
Malo Taulava,
Hey,
welcome,
welcome.
welcome. Welcome to the live digital Kava show here, Clyde Moore. Sorry, I didn't respond sooner on Instagram. I don't check Instagram as much, but let's line up some time to. I'm going to shoot out an email to kind of get us connected. Clyde Moore has maybe some topics for us
Oh,
to
nice.
consider and bring on the show, and it would be great to have Clyde Moore join us on an episode
Awesome.
here and there, Masi. So looking
Awesome.
forward to it, Clyde
Awesome.
Moore. Mahalo. Um, what was I going to say? Why are you not a big fan of scary movies, Masi?
Uh, I
Some
haven't.
people love it, right? Like Uku right here,
Yeah,
like Jamie, he loves it. But what's your
I
take
haven't
on
come
it?
across. I haven't come across a scary movie that has been a good narrative that I thought was like interesting. I don't know.
Mm.
What's some good scary movies that you come across? I tend to like true events movies or true
Yeah.
story movies. You know that has some thing to it. I tend to like those kind of movies, but the horror or scary movies, nah, it just doesn't get
Well, a
to
lot
me.
of it is just I guess it's the same reason why I'm not a big fan of like plays.
Hmm.
Maybe I think I don't know, but to me, a lot of the horror stories are just a little too unrealistic. Right? I
Yeah.
actually will. I'm more of a fan of like science fiction more than I am of scary movies, or maybe it's because when you go from scary, the very next emotion is angry. So maybe watching scary movies makes me angry, and I don't like it. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so that's Halloween. Some
Mm,
people. I was actually watching a video of a exorcist priest that was being interviewed by a SEAL guy. I forgot his name. He just interviewed Donald Trump. He's a podcast, but he's
mm,
a SEAL, Navy SEAL, retired military guy, and he was interviewing this priest who's an exorcist, and the priest said that Halloween is the devil's favorite holiday. I don't know if he's being overly superstitious or what, but that was kind of his position.
hey, Tua, but I was just gonna go back to when you brought the Exorcist priest. That movie, The Exorcist or something. It's a true story thing. I would consider that a scary movie. That's one of the movies that I was like, that I was kind of like really scared because there's times that you feel like, dang, there's some truth and spiritual stuff that affects me a
Yeah,
little bit. So like that, so that's probably the most scariest movie I've kind of watched. But like the other horror, like other scary movies, not really.
chainsaw and all that other
Yeah,
stuff
nah,
is just like
nah.
okay.
But that Exorcist movie,
Is that the one
that's
in
some real stuff.
Spain where they were in Spain?
I think so. And
Which
it was
one
a
is it?
it's the one with the girl. I guess it was in America. In
Oh, I
America,
don't
I
think
forgot
I've
where.
watched that one.
But but yeah.
I mean, I've had some, what would you call it, paranormal experiences in life. So I mean, I
Mm,
believe those things exist, but I'm not really of a big fan of the scary movies for
scary
whatever
movie.
reason.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, this guy, this Catholic priest was exorcist priest. He was talking about some of his experiences, and he was pretty
Not a
against, like,
fan.
he not a fan of Halloween. Um, let me see here.
I can see the reason why you people can make it. It's like an entry, right? You can make it. It's like an entry, but you know, I
It's
don't
a
know.
gateway experience,
Yes, yes, yeah, for sure.
right? Interesting. I mean, because Tonga is pretty superstitious. I mean, you can call it superstitious, or you could say it's a respect or a recognition
Mm,
that there is a spirit world out there. I mean, have you ever seen Tucker Carlson talk about that?
no, no.
So
What
Tucker
did he say?
Carlson, he says that he believes that like some of these government agencies are working with like spiritual beings, dark beings. He
I'm
says I
not
can't prove
surprised.
it. He says he can't prove it, but he says I just observe what they do, and then he says he's also spoken to some people that were in there, like the UFOs and stuff.
Yeah.
He says that a lot of that is um spiritual in nature, and I've heard
Mm,
other people say that too, that the UFOs
uh,
are more like spiritual anomalies. and that's why
Ah,
they behave the way that they behave and can't be explained.
okay. Hey,
So yeah.
I can believe that. I can believe
Hmm.
that.
So let's start with this, Masi. Let's start with this funny video right here. I saw this video the other day. I shared it with my kids because it's kind of hilarious, kind of a situation. Um, Let me share this here real quick. And it has to do with like the different parenting styles, right?
Eh,
Different parenting styles between like Polynesians and Palangis. There's there's no universal
mm,
correct way, right? You kind of talk about the different styles as some have pros, some have cons, but this one is kind of funny. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a father, a mother, and a daughter, Hafekasi daughter maybe, but the dad's Tongan, the mom's Paalangi, and they're sitting having dinner and having a conversation here real quick. But let's
okay.
kind of see if I can make this full screen.
Sweetheart, you haven't touched your dinner. Oh, just trying to sort something out.
Tunggu telepon ni mama.
So I was thinking we should take a little trip to Melbourne. Book that cute villa that we stayed at last time.
She doesn't need a holiday. She needs to be focusing on her education.
Oh, come on, darling. She's been studying hard enough. She is entitled to a little bit of fun.
When she's paying for that apartment with a good paying job, then she can waste her money holidaying.
We bought that apartment for her so that she could be closer to uni. Her grades are the best in her class. She could do with a holiday. Besides, she needs a little bonding time with her mum.
Palapare mai ka balangi. Na peka na whanau ka na whankipone. Nea o ka wit mai ka na dolo.
Speak English, please.
No, I haven't seen this
Oh.
one. That's funny, man.
How
That
long,
is
Masi?
funny.
How tanaki ya? Any thoughts to that, Mr. Atero?
No, I think there's they both have good points, right? They both have good points, and because at the end of the day, right, if you're doing well in school, it's good to have a little fun and
Reward here
stuff,
and there.
reward.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's good how the father just put things in perspective that just because you're doing good in school is not really reality, right? You still have lots of work to do, paying bills. The bills don't get paid by having good grades at school, right? So
The Bills don't go on holiday. Is that what you're
yeah,
saying, Masi?
yeah. So, interesting dynamics in that perspective, too. And I'm pretty sure there's, you know, especially with the global Tongan diaspora kind of throughout the world. I'm sure they're having these unique blended families and perspectives. But yeah, that's just kind of my initial reaction to that. I don't know if you had anything particular or different, to
Yeah, I think I think there's two layers to this. There's the cultural one, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then there's also the a difference between a mother and a father. So it's
Mm,
not just the cultural. There is a portion of it being the cultural, but I know some Tongan mothers that are kind of like the
mm-hmm.
Pala. I think there's also just part of the feminine and the mother type that they
Yeah.
want to have that relationship,
Mm-hmm.
nurturing and getting close. And I think there's that part too. And I agree 100% with what you said. As depending on the situation, right? Sometimes it's a little bit better to have the hard love, and then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's good to have the nurturing. This is why it's important to have both parents in the home,
Yeah.
right? And trying to figure out when's the appropriate approach to a child. And I don't know if you've heard the statistics of single parent home of the mother, single parent home for the father versus both parents in the home, and the statistics
Mm,
on pregnancy, uh, graduation, going to jail,
Mm.
Have you heard those statistics before,
I did,
Masi?
I did, I did hear those statistics. I do understand that. I think the single father has a much better rate of kids being successful compared to a single mom, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. Yeah,
Basically, the single father is the same as both parents,
because the
statistically
father,
speaking.
because the father is able to the important that's an important factor of giving, because the father is the executor of the consequence, and the father
Yes.
tends to go a long way for learning for young adults or young
Yeah,
teenagers,
it's a
right?
it's a dose of what the real world's going to look like, just like
Yes.
the parents sitting at that table that we were looking at, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is that, hey, no, hey, great, you're doing great at school, but
Mm,
the bills don't stop, right?
mm,
There's still more to be done. There's still things you got to worry about and take care of. And
mm,
so that is where the father kind of gives that dose of
mm.
reality on the table.
Yeah.
And so that's a part of it. So kind of a question then, Masi, if the single father and the both parents in the home statistically produce the same favorability for child, especially for girls, teen
Yeah.
pregnancy, uh, delinquency in school, or the law, and also just overall success. When we look at from a gospel perspective, what then is the role of the mother?
Yeah. Definitely the role of, to me, the role of the mother or the role of a wife is to make sure that you don't get too carried over. That's what I think. Because you can be a little bit too, even though the father can do well, because maybe there are some aspects of maybe being a little bit too maybe too aggressive. But yes, it's for their own good, but maybe it can be detrimental for yourself. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe for yourself, but
Yeah.
that's what I think, and that is the role of the wife or the mother in the home, is to provide, is to, I think it's like the mercy side, Dua. I see it as like
Hmm.
a little bit of the mercy side, because that's what the feminine side kind of brings. It's more of that mercy side, kind of like when we get to judgment, we're gonna have some mercy. We're still gonna be tried to the
There's
full
still
extent of
judgment,
justice.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we're gonna be get the full wrath or whatever, so that it is just. But at the same time, there's gonna be mercy, and I feel like that's what the mother figure or the wife figure can be within the home, and that's important, because people do make mistakes. You got to be a little bit softer sometimes, right? And we all understand that's, see, right. And then when you become too over, let's just say, accommodating, and always being showing like you're always uh, what always accommodating, always uh, pleasing, and to everything, that can get a little overbearing, and no one fears they can do a little bit, go random and do whatever behavior
No
they want. So
consequence.
no consequences. So yeah, that's what I feel like is the importance, to have that balance, right? And that's why the male will always do better, because the consequence does drive people to improve their behavior. And mercy is one of the things that's important. You got to have it, because everyone's gonna need mercy. We all make mistakes, but that tends to be uh, a what is it, an attribute that can be, people can really use that in a negative way, or use that to not really change, and use that against you and stuff.
Mm.
If they know they can do whatever and they won't get any consequence. That's just me. I don't know if I'm missing anything, or you had a different idea or perspective on that, Dua.
No, it's along those lines. Looks like Clyde Moore is in agreement with some of the statements that you're sharing there.
Mm,
It really just, it to me, it begs the question, if the male figure can produce the same results, temporal
mm,
results,
yes.
right? It's poverty. When you have a
Yeah.
single father, poverty is almost
Mm,
unlike, it's less likely. Interaction with the law, education, uh teen pregnancy, all those negative things. Those are in many ways kind of when you measure it from the world standards. So I guess the only thing that kind of comes to my mind is what the mother brings to the table is something that in many ways transcends the temporal, right? I don't know if the nurturing, like you're saying, it's the mercy. Nature is not merciful, right? Like nature, it is kill or be killed.
Just
right?
watch the National Geographic of the lion's life, man.
Exactly.
Every time I watch some documentary of some animals in Africa, like the lions, especially they're
they're
no
ruthless.
mercy. Yes.
So what I'm getting to is it seems like, but you can't have mercy unless there's order in the temporal world.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't have mercy when everyone is starving and living in poverty.
Yeah.
Right? And you just like art doesn't necessarily thrive when everyone's starving and killing each other. When you have stability and you have that structure, then you can build on that in society. And I think that's where I'm kind of just kind of observing some of that stuff. Looks like Clyde Moore has a comment. He says the masculine and the feminine energy, the balance. Yeah, 100%. They need each other, right? And what I'm getting to is when we observe it, those statistics, and this is where we can kind of pull from Jordan Peterson. God in a sense provided the Garden of Eden, which is that safe space, whatever you want to call it. I'm not trying to be woke and talk about the safe space. But the Garden of Eden was a organized, there wasn't chaos, there was balance and equilibrium, effortless balance. Adam and Eve didn't have to work to get that balance. It existed, right? Now that we're in a fallen world, it seems like the masculine responsibility is to try and provide that type of stability in the sense of the earth and all of its elements are trying to destroy you. The nature, the animals are trying to destroy you, and there's competition. And the masculine is going to try and say, no, we're going to try and create some order, some structure, which leads to protection, right? Some type of law and order and the ability to progress forward. And then on top of that, the feminine brings out the beauty that can be created out of that structure and that order. And that is basically, in a sense, what each family is trying to do, right? In smaller scales, is the male. And granted, there are situations where it doesn't work out the ideal. But anyways, that was just something that came to my mind. And I think this is where we are in society when it got a little unbalanced. We got a little too much, maybe, of, you can always tell when there's too much of one. When there's too much of the masculine, then it basically turns to communism, right? Where you're told don't think, just do what you're told, what the law says. And then on the other side, when the feminine it is overpowering, then it gets chaotic. Then all of a sudden we can't tell the difference between a boy and a girl. And you know what I mean? So we're kind
that's where we're at now.
That's where we're at right now. Basically. So interesting. Yeah. So just thought
very
that
interesting.
Here's another one, Mussy, that I found these two twins. I think they're Samoan guys. They're in Australia. And you know how the King and Queen of England were in Samoa? I guess they got a title or something. Seen some funny videos where like some of the islanders are there taking, made the king feel uncomfortable because he's not used to it, right? Taking a selfie in front of them, and that's kind of considered rude, right? Because they're
rude,
like they're but the islanders are just like, hey, whatever. But there's also some controversy, I guess, online. Why are we giving, why are we giving them a title? They're the colonizers, the oppressors. But I like these two guys. I guess they're twins. and they take an interesting perspective on this whole situation here. Um, let's listen. There's two videos. Let's listen to the first one, and then I want to just kind of get your thoughts on this, Masi, and just have a reaction to the first one. Then we'll go to the next one.
Should King Charles have a title? Me?
Me personally, I was so proud.
Yeah.
I was so like because like before the the big colonizing age happened, right? From the British, we were oppressing each other, bro. So like we can't just look at them and blame them for oppressing us. We were oppressing each other, like the Tongan was the last empire that ruled over. We weren't saints. It's not like flowers and roses when they came. It wasn't. Like, yes, it was good to an extent, but bro, we were fighting each other. We were going to war, and we were traveling the ocean, going to each other. Yeah.
Remember, the Matais, they serve. They serve. Just like how the saying goes. Meaning the way to power or authority is through service. And if someone serves Samoa, serves our family and all the stuff, like they deserve it. And so it's up to you how you want to look at it. Me personally, I'm like, bro, that's mad, bro. Give him the title. They made the world what it is today, bro. Governance, infrastructure, education, trading network, pretty much the life that we live in, right? And if you pay attention enough, like, we have so many opportunities around us. What can we do for our future generations? Because there's so much, bro. Like, we've been set up for, like, that's the impact that the British Empire did. Like, bro, now we can, us, all these other ethnic groups in these, because Australia, we're a multicultural country.
Interesting.
First thoughts. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think the other twin, I'll kind of touch on what he kind of talked about. He is probably right because, you know, they always say like during the whole colonization. To me, it's people. People are always called during that era. You were always it's whoever was in power. He kind of mentioned the Tongan Empire that was there.
Mhm.
They were, and we all know that there was a time that many Samoans were probably used as laborers because they were specialized in axis tools and making a lot of the stonework all over Tongatapu. And who knows what did they? We say it could have been a way of just them serving because they were forced to. I don't know if they were wanted to do stuff. Even the Pulimede building those kind of structures probably took a lot of work and stuff. So it's a different form of every country is or every society. It's whoever is empowered, they're gonna exercise it. I always think if Tonga had the power of the the British Empire in that time frame, who knows? Maybe they would have done the same thing too. It was just all about power. It's just it just things just happen in the way it is, and it is what it is. It's just you gotta just move on. Whatever happened. Learn from it, and just move on for the future. Even with the whole title of the King of Britain, me just knowing Samoa, it's very Samoans tend to give titles a lot more frequently to anybody. It's because it's very different compared to what Tonga is like. Not everybody just gets a title for the sake of just coming or just visiting. It's maybe it's because it's not. So I don't know. Maybe because we don't have titles just to give it just for the sake of it. Do I don't know. This is just me, but I know from being in Samoa and looking at a lot of just any famous people, a lot of them already have titles. So, to me, I'm not surprised, and to me, do I really care if he does get it or not? Not really, because not really because I just know everybody gets titles in Samoa. Like a lot of the people I know, and even people you think don't even have titles, they do have
Have
a
a title.
title. So that's just me. It's a very normal thing in Samoa to get titles. So that's why I didn't. It was a normal thing 10 years ago when I was there, and today it's still a very normal thing, which is a lot different, maybe in kind of what we grew up with in Tonga. Not everybody just gets a title for the sake of kind of getting a title. It was a very more special. special thing to receive a title. But that's
Mm.
just me. I don't know if you had any thoughts or anything, Dua, that they kind
Yeah,
of
I
mentioned.
do. It looks like a Clyde Moore has a comment here. I agree with them. Everything is perspective, colonized or not. What are we doing to better our own situation? I argue the colonized have a head start. In many ways, true. What I really liked about their mentality is it's not a victim
Yes.
mentality. That's the first thing, right? Kind
Yeah.
of like what Clyde Moore is saying here is you're not sitting down and saying, "Woe is me, I can't do anything.
Eh,
I
eh.
just, my life sucks. I can't do anything." That's what we call a loser mentality. I'm not trying to downplay some of the things that happen. Hey, things that happen, but the reality is, how do you get better? That's what matters most.
You you can't change the past. If you can have the opportunity to change the past, then I understand maybe
Yeah,
going back and try to correct. But we time you can't go back.
yeah. If you have a
Gotta,
time machine and then you can
mm,
travel back in time, hey, take a shot. Eh? But I guarantee you this: you go back to try and fix the past, you're just gonna make things worse. Very rarely has a human being made things better, right? The only person who makes things better is God. But anyways, the other part is I agree a lot with his position on just observing reality. And I agree with what you said, Masi. Whoever was the most powerful, you're going to colonize. You're going to expand. That has
that's
been
what you
human
do.
nature for it's still happening now. The
Yes.
Chinese want to expand and get more power and more influence. That's why
There's a
they want to
civil
take
there's a
over Taiwan.
civil war happening in South Sudan and Sudan because
Over
of just
yes,
yes. So
exactly.
over power. So it
The
happens.
United States is
Hmm.
expansive. Now, granted, the United States is kind of rare, and I think Elon Musk makes a really good point. The United States could have colonized the whole world.
Yeah.
When they dropped that nuclear bomb on Japan, no one else
There's,
had a nuclear bomb. The
yeah.
United States, if the United States really wanted to be, and I'm not saying the United States is perfect. We've made a lot of mistakes. But
Hmm.
what I'm trying to say is in the big picture, that was rare for
Yeah.
a nation to have almost what we would consider absolute power and then not take over the whole world. That is rare. Um, and also, I don't know if I ever told you, Mussy, but I participated in a class at BYU. It was an anthropology class, and we went to attend a Polynesian. I don't know what you want to call it, right? It was like Hawaiian, Samoan, Tongan,
Polynesian
the
symposium or something.
something. It was like a little conference thing. The
Okay.
Polynesians presented something to the Native Americans, the Utes, and they
Yes.
had
Okay.
like respecting them or recognizing them. And I didn't back then. I didn't know what like woke was and
Yes.
kind of this whole victim
Yes.
ideology and political position, right? So
Hmm.
I thought, oh, hey, this is nice. Just, everybody's
Yeah.
giving gifts. I didn't realize, no, looking back now, they were doing a political statement. But there was a Hawaiian lady, and I don't know if you heard of her, but apparently she was pretty famous. I never knew of her when I was in Hawaii, going to high school. And her name was Haunani Trask.
Ooh, sounds familiar. That Trask
She,
name.
yeah, she was a professor at University of Hawaii. She's well known for
Activism.
like
She's in the act.
activism,
Okay.
anti US, anti everything. Like, first she's just talking about, colonization and stuff. When she started to get my attention is when she literally said she was at the airport and she wanted to off people at the airport because they were white and that tourism is cultural rape. and
Dang,
and
that's
then
crazy.
she said we need to teach our children who the enemy is, and the enemy is the United States of America.
And then she went and eat McDonald's after.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, exactly, right? No, but so they go on this bashing of the United
Hmm.
States, and I'm like, you're at a state sponsored university. It was at the University of Utah in Salt Lake. And I'm like, you have all this stuff. It's like, okay. But anyways, it got to the question and answer session. And I put my hand up, right?
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I asked her a question, and I asked her two questions. I said, the first one is, obviously, I said, you've already highlighted the white man's evil, right? And
Yeah.
his colonization. And I said, I'm half Tongan, half white. And then I said, but then I also look at my Tongan side, and they were colonizers in theory, right? They were at some point forcing people to do things they didn't want. That's why some people were not happy. And then I asked her, and I said, if I remember correctly, no one was signing up to be subjected to Kamehameha in
Yeah.
Hawaii. Like, Kamehameha colonized Hawaii to bring them together
Yeah.
because they weren't under a unified king.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Kamehameha said, get in line or I'll beat you in line.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Isn't
I
some
was
of
just,
isn't some of the bloody wars in Hawaii was through from Kamehameha when he conquered Maui and Oahu? I mean, pushing
exactly. Some of them,
literally
yeah,
pushing the
slaughtered whole
guys over.
communities.
Yes, what the poly? You know the Poly Point, or is it Poly? The H Poly? It's kind of close. That Poly Point when literally Kamehameha
Yeah. Dropped
drove.
people off the cliffs.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they didn't want to
So,
surrender.
yeah. So I just thought it was kind of strange. And then, she was all like, "Oh, I don't deal with the theoretical." Because I asked her, I said, if
Yeah.
Kamehameha was the most powerful chief in the world, had the height, do you think he would have stopped in Hawaii, or do
Mm,
you think he would have gone further? And her answer was, "Oh, I don't deal with the theory or the
yeah.
theoretical. I deal with the reality."
Yeah. Because it's
You
against
know?
her. It goes against her argument.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's, and I mean, we've kind of talked about it too, sometimes on the podcast, Mussy, that
Yeah.
just like education, you and I, we've discussed some of our, you know, critiques of Western education, but at the same time, we do recognize some of the benefits. And what do? You leverage the benefits to your advantage and limit the
Mm,
negatives, right? And that's kind of the same with Western civilization. Western civilization is all around us. The question is, how do we leverage it to give us more opportunities? And if there are negative outcomes, which everything has a negative, how do we limit those but take the advantages to propel us to achieve the goals that we want?
correct.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's what was kind of my initial response to their video. But I really enjoyed kind of their position there, and
Mm,
then you have comments like let's pull up some of these comments here, right? See, he says, "Brah, they ruined lives, man. We are still their slaves, and you can't see that. System got you thinking otherwise. God, land, and kids are meant to be free." I don't know what that means.
yeah. I'm not
What
too
is
sure.
free? What is free? Is free running around with loincloths in the Sahara Desert,
Mm,
starving? Have you ever watched those survivor shows where
mm.
it's like, alone, where you see who's going to last the longest? Do you know what they worry about all day, every day? Where am I going to eat next?
Mm, mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of funny to me, like that's the mentality. These guys are thinking different just because they're not thinking of the victim mentality.
Yeah.
Here's Clyde Moore. He says, Fakaofa, some of these heroes from the colonies, they champion victimhood and they've been lauded for it.
Mm.
That's the truth. Some of these people make a living out of grievances,
Yes.
right? That's
Yeah.
where they get their power and their influence.
Yeah. And no, and I know there were some discussions on why did Samoa have to have the king over, and because of all these uh this is the organization or the entity that colonized and caused so much pain. I was like, dude, people, because the thing is, a lot of the people in Samoa have already moved on. They're just looking, having this person comes in is going to generate some economic activity, and it's going to lift some people out of poverty. If poverty, like that's the thing. I'm sure this whole meeting of bringing, I think it was like 90 or 70 countries and delegates all came. I'm sure a lot
Yeah.
of the hotel businesses all did well for those, what, week or two
Yeah.
weeks that they were there. Like
The
there's so
airlines,
much,
the airport,
yeah,
the
and it
restaurants, the hotel,
it trickles down.
transportation, everything.
And I was just saying, too, when I was in Samoa, and everyone knows when they went to Samoa, it's very common to have, so a lot of the families send their kids or kids who are working in the streets selling fabric and food and stuff. I'm sure some of those kids came
Buying
across some of
stuff.
these,
Yeah.
yes, came across some of these delegates or government workers from different countries and bought some stuff from them. Like, you it's just, it's a very, that kind of thinking is a very it's a way that it's either they never been poor or they never understood that the situation in Samoa, that everyone's moved on. They're worrying about what they're gonna eat, what's gonna be their school fees so that families can pay for their kids to go to school, because going to school is gonna cost money for uniform. So I'm like, it's a little out of touch, and those are like I said, if people are still dwelling in the past, man, what a waste of opportunity to think of the now
If
and the future.
if you're thinking you're still suffering and have pain, it's all in your head because it's
Yeah.
been so many generations. Trust me,
Yeah.
you aren't suffering. You're just suffering in your head. Oh
And
yeah,
that's
wait, Polynesian Prince, Malo, Malo,
Hey,
welcome,
Malo,
welcome.
Malo. And I
Go
was just
ahead,
thinking
Messi.
too. Another problem is these people are like, sometimes like the government. They think they know what's good for other people, or for other people what they should be doing. It's like, just let people think for themselves. And and Samoa is an independent country right
Yeah,
now. Upolu and Savai, let them think what they
no
want to
one
do.
forced them. No one
I'm
forced them to give him the title,
Yeah, yeah. Let them do
right?
what they want to do. Yeah,
Exactly. And you know what's funny? The king's life is not gonna be improved by this title.
yeah.
Like what is King Charles gonna get from this title? Is he gonna
He,
get something that he doesn't already have?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, he's doing it because it's a good way to bring the people together, understand. But
Build
my
a
man is
relationship.
build a relationship, but my man is being busy. I think he's already has some dealing with some cancer stuff. He's thinking he's gonna need to go back and get some treatment or whatever. Like, it's not a it's really not a big deal, man. And like I said, after being in Samoa, it's a very common practice in Upolu and Savai and Tutuila, Manua, to give titles to anyone who's well known. I don't know any well known Samoan or a famous person that's been to Upolu that never got
Yeah.
a title. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, it's a
And that's a
normal practice.
different way of thinking because some of the history is a title actually kind of like he was mentioning, a title actually holds you back sometimes.
Hmm.
Like the one twin that was like, the point of some of this is to serve, right? And there
Yeah.
are some stories in Mua where someone didn't want to take the title because the title meant he had to do work. And he actually had more privilege not having
You
the
know,
title, right?
I did come across somebody explaining to me the title, because the Ho'egi name Fushtua, it's part of the noble names. So the actual person that was supposed to get that title was didn't want to come and get it. So the name Fushtua, he appointed a Tua person, no affiliation to a high rank
No
family or
royal.
anything,
Okay.
no royal. Got him to go to Tongatapu to go and receive the appointment to receive a Aiki name, and the name Fushtua, meaning Fushi, may
From the
Tua
Tua,
bring
from
from a
outside.
Tua, come back, and then they bestowed it because they know this wasn't the person, but because they said they were gonna give one, this is this is the guy that representing the guy that was supposed to get it. Came, he was a Tua person, so Fushtua became the whole Aiki name, and that's how he came to be. Because the guy who didn't want to get it, he probably just like, if I get name, I have a, it's pretty much
A job.
huge a job responsibility that you're gonna have to do a lot. He wasn't as gonna be free like how it is today. But I think, and that's probably a big issue. People think because people think titles in today is more of a, it's looked on a way that it's more, you get a lot of things and
Benefit.
rewards. benefit, and they kind of lose track that there was a lot of responsibility and work way back then. The reason why it is what it is today, and I think they
Yeah.
lose sight of that.
Yeah, because the story that comes to mind, and I don't know the details, I just kind of remember hearing it, is one of the descendants of the Tuitonga, obviously 100 or 2, whatever it was, a few hundred years
Hmm.
ago, they wanted to bestow either the Tuiha Takalaua or the Tuikanukupolu, whatever, with them.
Hmm.
And he said, no, says, I
Hmm.
don't want that. And his supposedly it was kind of the way he put it is, when you fei umu, right? When you fei umu and you're cooking and you're doing the work, you get the smoke in your hair,
Hmm.
and then you have the body kind of seeps into your skin, right? And so you have the umu smell on you. There's a
Yes.
smoke. It's no different when you're sitting next to a fire. So
Hmm.
apparently, this person who obviously of royal descent, they were
Hmm.
trying to offer a title to him, and he goes, "No." Says, "You see this body? This body doesn't know what the smell of smoke is,
Mm.
right? From the
Mm.
umu. And there's
Mm.
no way." He says, if I take that title, that would be like me going and fei umu, because
Mm.
that title has responsibilities and
A
tasks
lot.
to
Yes.
execute that in many ways is a downgrade from me
From what
just
I'm at.
being me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Where
not
I'm at.
having a title with my royal blood that's already
Yes.
in me. And
Because you,
so,
you already have the
yeah,
prestige. You have already the prestige on you because
exactly.
you have your genealogical ties, your family ties. Mm.
Exactly. And so that's why I think it's funny. This is such a, they're sitting here getting upset about the King of England getting a title, but they're looking from it from a very Western
Yeah.
perspective, thinking that, oh, title just means power and
Yeah.
influence. When in reality, and they're mocking this brother of ours from Samoa by saying, oh, you've
Mm.
been brainwashed,
Mm.
But in all honesty, he's looking from it from a very traditional perspective. Is, dude,
Mm.
the title means you serve.
Mm.
The title means you have a job and a responsibility, right? And
Yeah.
so he's actually, in my perspective, he's giving more of the traditional
Perspective, huh?
perspective. And then here we have someone over here with, wants reparations probably for something he doesn't deserve, and to be paid for something that he never felt or earned,
Mm-hmm.
accusing this Samoan brother of being brainwashed. I don't know. It's just kind of funny, right? It's kind of
It is.
like, if you notice, the people who call other people a derogatory term all the time, you find out later that they're the ones that actually do that, right? Like, if I honestly believe this, if there's
Mm.
someone who runs around and says everybody's a racist, you know
Mm.
who I think is the racist?
Yourself.
That person who's projecting racism everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And this person over here is like, oh man, you're brainwashed, you're oppressing people, blah blah blah. It's like, no, I think you're brainwashed,
Mm.
because you're the one running around telling everybody that they're brainwashed. I don't
Mm.
know.
No,
Interesting.
good point. Very interesting. Yeah.
With that being said, I found something that was interesting, because we're kind of talking about the Western perspective and so forth. I've seen a lot of videos
It's not that I need
of people signing up for the Hawaiian military and becoming citizens of the Hawaiian
Okay.
kingdom. I don't
Okay.
know if you've
Okay.
seen that at all,
Nope.
Masi. Have you
Nope.
have you seen
Nope.
that on social media?
Nope. I haven't seen any of that.
And yeah, I've seen a lot of it, especially on TikTok. Like, some people in like military clothing saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a sergeant in the Hawaiian Kingdom military," and other people talking about, like, so this video kind of covers, I guess, a position of the Hawaiian Kingdom, and some kind of debate that's going on. Maybe we should be more familiar with it. I don't know.
Okay. Interesting.
But kind of listen to this kind of explanation on why they think international law should still recognize Hawaii as a kingdom that exists.
Okay.
It's not that I need to argue the kingdom exists. You have to show me it doesn't exist, because I'm operating on the premise that it does exist because I have proof that Hawaii had treaties, one in particular with the Dutch, the Netherlands. I know that Hawaii had an embassy in Washington, D.C. I know Hawaii had an embassy in London, Paris, Amsterdam. I know that. So I know it did exist. Therefore, it still exists until you show me it doesn't. So it's really, can you falsify this fact? Not, are you going to agree with me that this is the fact? In a dissertation, when you do your doctoral research, and all research is done, whether master's or PhD, you do not argue the facts. You basically provide the facts, and these facts are either falsifiable or not. The job of a committee is to falsify. That's it. So what was presented to the Permanent Court of Arbitration was merely, can you falsify it? There's no argument here. And they couldn't falsify it, because the only way that you can show that the Hawaiian Kingdom does not exist is international law. Where's the treaty? Instead, all you have is American laws passed by Congress being imposed in Hawaii, which is the subject of the dispute. It's not that I need to.
I've seen that guy before. He's good. He's the first cousin of that Reeves. What's that? Was Keanu Reeves?
Oh,
You know that
yeah,
picture?
yeah.
They're first cousins. Yeah. So that's a good. I mean, I agree with him. Hawaii was a kingdom. It was recognized as a kingdom. But the thing I think he doesn't. It's gonna be very difficult. That how would you explain Queen Liliuokalani allowing U.S. military to take over, right? Because she did, they did come with their military, and Queen Liliuokalani said for the Hawaiian people not to fight back, right? Because I have an idea that if there was pushback, because we all know that freedom is not free, love is spilled by blood, and if Queen Liliuokalani is one of those things, if she came back, maybe Hawaii would have been different if there was pushback. Because I always feel like I don't know if America would have the political will to keep sending resources. It's like, hey, just give them their independence, right, or whatever. But it's gonna be hard to undo that because Queen Olukalani said no one should fight back, right? And the U.S. military just kind of walked through, and yes, she was held in the Yolani Palace as a prisoner, kind of deal there. But then you had also an election of residents because it was a territory to become statehood. How are you going to reverse that? So that's my two questions that I would. Yes, we all know I agree with him. We all recognize that Hawaii was a kingdom.
Yeah.
That's a fact. But how would you explain if that was your queen Leo Kalani when she said that no one should fight back against the U.S. I think it was the Navy that kind of came up upon the shore, not to fight back and just let them, because she wanted peace. Part of that peace could have been become a territory, right? So that's what happened. Then Hawaii became a territory of the United States. And then from the territory to the statehood being fully transitioned to a full statehood to the United States. Then what happened to all those people? Are you going to neglect all those people who actually voted? And and to me, the ones who didn't vote, then I don't know. That's I can't really speak on that why they didn't vote. But the people who voted, they were residents. They lived there. There's a territory, the United States. What's up with their voices, right? That we're gonna just forget about that. So that's my issue with his stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm missing something, or do you have a different angle to it that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is similar to what you're kind of expressing here, but we got some comments here to catch up. Mo, welcome. Says this doctor's the man. If you see what he's doing in Hawaii, he presented on the occupation and won. Yeah, he confirmed, like you said. I think I saw that video that he's first cousins with Keanu Reeves. Kind of talking about what they did with the generations, the loss of the language, talking about the vote that you mentioned. And that voting that was found in the Congress library. I agree 100%. the only way, and this is what makes America kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
The typical way to settle disputes, war, right? That's really what it comes down to. That
Yeah.
now that Hawaii is part of the United States, secession is going to be very, very difficult because you said people have voted, people have lived as Americans, they're integrated with the American society.
Here's another thing, Tua. The ethnic group Hawaiians are not the majority.
No,
In Hawaii
yeah,
now, you got the Filipinos, you got a lot of them, the Okinawan Japanese, you got a big group of Caucasian,
Micronesians, yeah,
Micronesian. So like, I understand. I applaud him for the thought. Like I said, if I was, we're all Polynesian, right? But we have our certain areas, like you're in Hawaii, you care about, we are localized in certain areas when you have certain family ties to land and stuff. That is very difficult, and I can applaud him trying to keep fighting. But even me, for myself, just like I'm trying to be realistic. You're Even if you're gonna try to overthrow or overturn, not only you're gonna do against the U.S. government. Let's just say the U.S. government allows it, then you're gonna have somewhat civil war because you got so many
Hawaiians,
different.
there's not enough Hawaiians, yeah.
Are you gonna have enough people within Hawaii to even want to fight? Because you, like I said, you got the lot of the Asian groups that's living there. Then you have the Caucasian. Like, it's gonna be so messy. I don't know if it's gonna be any helpful for anyone. Like,
If it's even worth it.
that's my thing, Dua. Yeah, but sorry to interrupt you, Dua. But
No,
you
no,
go
no,
ahead.
no. I agree 100%, and that's
Just being realistic, and that's the thing. I applaud him for what he's doing, but like, I'm sure I'm sure I'm sure I'm sure he, I mean, if he's a doctor, he's got to
it's
know
a
that.
smart guy, obviously, at some point,
Smart
right?
guy, or unless he's just doing it because this is what he's paid to do it. So if he's paid to do it to kind of advocate for the Hawaiian King, hey, it
That's
is
how
what
he
it
gets
is.
funding.
That's how he
I'm
gets
joking.
funded.
We're not saying that's the case, but we're
Not the
just kind
case,
of
but I'm just
smiling because that happens to be what a lot of quote unquote these researchers and these activists kind of fall into.
it's
Samita Malo, Malo,
Hey,
welcome.
Malo Shamita, it's the same thing too when racism is not really there, but people want racism to still be very active and a hot
It's an
topic because
industry. Yeah.
that's what they get paid to be an advocate, right? Get paid by certain interest groups.
Yeah.
So
And we're not saying that's the case for him, but we're just saying that's something to keep an eye out
yeah,
for, right? And he says it, but it's sad for us Tongan when we go visit Hawaii. And there's some truth to that, right?
yes,
Because they are our brothers and sisters over there. From our perspective, they were part of the Polynesian nation,
mm,
right? That
yeah,
obviously, faced some hard times. This is the interesting thing. I mean, this is what Tupou the first was able to do was he established multiple treaties, right?
yes,
He had treaties with the French, the British, the Germans, the English. Um, so there's a lot that Tupou the first did that helped Tonga avoid what happened in Hawaii. And coming back to what you were saying earlier, Masi,
hmm
what if the Queen didn't say don't fight? Then maybe it
that's
would
what
be
I'm
no
saying.
more Hawaiians but with all the population loss and they fight, they would have been wiped out. And who knows, there'd be way less Hawaiians than they are today. Maybe that's the calculation she did. She's like, we can try and fight, but we're not going to win probably. And losing the people, she made a calculation. It's not worth it. I don't know. That's just kind of my guess right now.
If I was her, yes. If I was her, of course, I'm looking at hindsight. She probably made the calculation, but this could have been a feminine reaction. This is what I'm just saying. I'm just saying if it was like a male figure of a Kamehameha, maybe it would have been different. I don't know. I'm just saying. Yes, they would have lost, but I'm a big believer in those days. I don't think America would have the political will to go thousands of miles to send resources. Let's just say if the people were able to overcome whatever the military size they sent over to
The
Hawaii to
force
kind of
that they sent.
the force
Yeah.
they sent. You think they're gonna keep sending? It's the same discussion I have with Maoris here. If the Tainui Waikato tribe had
All
assistance from the
united.
Ngapuhi, yeah, which is the biggest tribe is Ngapui, which is the northern. They came and assist them. Would England literally keep trying to send forces of huge resources? Because
What
I'm telling
years?
you,
What years were that, Mussy? 1800s?
18. I'll try to get that. This is like in the mid 1800s, maybe 1860s. You know, that time. Would they keep going if everyone was united to fight? You know,
Yeah.
because it's that political will. They can always have resources to send, but it's the political will. They have
And the
other things.
capital,
The
right?
capital, right?
Because
Yeah.
isn't that one of the things that helped the United States, even though they were severely outnumbered? The reason why they were trying to tax the United States is because England needed cash and
Yes.
they were stretched thin. And maybe they, it's interesting. I don't know, right? Maybe if there was more pushback, maybe they would have survived and maybe could have leveraged the treaty that they already had with the Netherlands. Who knows? I don't
Yes.
know.
Or yes, because they were recognized by other parts of the country with like what he mentioned, Netherlands. If there was some kind of discourse, because like America didn't really know who were really their allies until when they were fighting the British. They said, okay, the French have a strong navy. They said they're willing to help us. French kind of participated. There was other parts of Europe that kind of helped kind of make America really outlast the British, because the British, it was that political will to keep going, keep fighting, and they really fought hard. But when you have it's that political will. I don't know if America would have kept pushing if Hawaii was in chaos with the Civil
Yeah.
War. I'm just saying,
Well,
and it would have
no,
been different.
100%.
It would have been different, but like I said, we talked about. It was just funny how we talked about the feminine and the masculine side. Hey, maybe a male would a Hawaiian would have done the same thing. But I'm just saying, she just did it as a certain reaction and just thinking, yes, there's going to be a lot of lives lost, but at the end of the day, a lot of freedoms. I'm just thinking of like, man, a lot of the freedoms we have, there's a
Lot
great
of
amount
life
lost.
is lost. Yes.
Yes.
I
So
mean, just look at the Civil War, right?
Civil War,
You
right?
had
Yeah.
you had the Civil War, you had the Revolutionary War. A lot of lives were lost. 100%.
So that's what I'm just saying. Even it's the same argument I have here in New Zealand when I kind of speak with some of my Maori colleagues and stuff. If they were just united and fought, because the Tainui did fought as much as they could, but obviously they were succumbed to their just limited bodies, soldiers and resources. But if they had help from especially Ngapui, because they were the largest tribe, I don't know if Britain would have kept sending military to all the way New Zealand, literally from the other side of the world.
Yes, especially if there I mean, especially if there wasn't like huge deposits of gold or some kind of obvious
Yes,
benefit, right?
yes,
Where
yes.
that's what they were thinking about the Americas is like, dude, it's this massive continent. There's gotta be, and some of
They
the,
sent.
the
They
Spanish already had
yes,
gold,
correct.
but maybe like you're saying, if they were united and fended it off, then they would have asked themselves, hey, is this worth the trouble? But if it
Yeah.
comes with a small price, well, why not take it? Right?
Yes.
Not if it comes at a smaller price.
Yeah.
No,
Because I
that's a
don't
fair
know.
point.
Yeah. Because I don't know if same thing with the U.S. I don't know if the U.S. like literally how America already expanded all the way out to the west. They already had a lot of the resources. What would they really had the political will to go to Hawaii to get some sugar cane and pineapple? Like, was that really a big deal?
Ultimate
The
goal.
initial, the initial, right? The initial military that was sent from California to Hawaii because they just responded to a call from some American citizens. They were running business in Hawaii. Military came, and then they just kind of right. Queen Liliuokalani said, "No one fight back." People listened and became a
That was
territory and
it.
a statehood. It was it. So that's my argument to it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, here's some interesting comments here and thoughts. Says, I guess he teaches at the University of Hawaii. Tui, we do have an article on the game that we might get to later on. But definitely we talked about that a little bit earlier, but we may revisit that topic. So Mo says that the royalty there married the business people in those days and fell in love with the Western culture. If you look back at the Hawaiian royalty, that's one thing that I think King Afa drills into a lot,
mm,
right? Is
mm,
that marrying into the Western culture, and I guess a lot of the royalty went to Europe, right? They're out there traveling Europe while the Palangi guys stayed behind and took over the country because they were out traveling Europe. And then Mo's interesting point is Tepo the First kept the Tongan royalty with the Tongans. And maybe was that a strategy? I don't know. But that was
I have
something interesting.
yeah, I have my thing there. I don't think it was the marrying was a big deal. I don't mind with that marrying. To me, the biggest issue was in Hawaii in that time, they allowed
The
non-Hawaiians to
land.
have the same voting power in their government because they were voted in too. Remember, they were voted in. They were part of the government in Hawaii, and they were voting legislation what they wanted. That was a big mistake. The
Yeah.
intermarrying, I don't think it was a as big. It was more of non-Hawaiians getting into government, and then not only that, the
Being able
land.
to influence it so
Yes,
quickly. Because
influence
at
with
least
giving
if they're
land.
half Hawaiian, they
Yes,
might be a little bit more sensitive to
yes,
their Hawaiian roots. But if you're a Palangi and you just have some Hawaiian
yeah,
kids, you're like, no, I want my kids to be
yeah.
westernized.
Yeah, yeah, and you give them same voting power in your own government
Yeah.
on how things should be dealt with in Hawaiian affairs, right? That's gonna cause chaos. To me, that was the big issue was allowing non-Hawaiians to get in there.
Yeah. Hey, Polynesian Prince, guys, we would like to have some time for questions at the end. Have some questions, but want to throw off the current topic. Ask some questions right now.
Yeah.
Polynesian Prince, we'll stay on this topic. If you have any questions, we have like other items that we just potential areas to take the show tonight.
Yeah.
But pull up any questions you want. Mo has a funny comment here, Mussy, since it's Halloween, said they fell for the candy.
No, and this is the funny thing, so this is why we talk about, just kind of make it relevant to today's topic with the border, right? See, even the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, and
Yeah.
Maoris, it's important to have some control of your border. Because even
Yeah.
talk, if you just think about it, if they just were able to at least vet and not allow a mass migration of like Europeans to come into Hawaii,
And then give them voting power right
give him
off the
voting
bat.
power.
So basically, you're making the point here where we could be making the same mistake, but it's by design, unfortunately, by the
It's by
people who
design.
are allowing it to happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, who the people who did allow, they were getting benefits too by the Europeans. I'm sure the Europeans were selling lands. They were giving them the alcohol, the guns, extra, whatever materials, so they could settle whatever part they wanted. So it wasn't a one way. People allow you allow people to come over because you're gonna get something off of it. You're
Out
not.
of it.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing here in
Hmm.
New Zealand with the Maori. A lot of the Maori had intertribal wars, so they would let a lot of Europeans to come and settle their lands, and the Europeans would give them their guns to help them have advantage in their tribal wars, right? Alcohol too and stuff, and a lot of them were whaling ships, so they will get resources from some of these whaling ships. So see, and that's why
Here,
borders are so important.
it's important in maintaining that. Here's an interesting thing to think of because I'm a big believer. You can observe things that are going on today, and it'll give you a decent idea of what could have happened in the past.
Hmm.
I think it's fair to say that universal unity is not always common, right? What I mean by that is, it fair? I think it's a fair assumption to make that not all Hawaiians would have been falling in line to maintain the current royal family that's in power, right? There's always people vying for power, right?
Hmm.
And position. I wonder how much this is, and I don't know if anyone knows the history into it, that there were nobility in Hawaii that were promoting these Westerners to get voting power, to get all this stuff, because they needed to shake things up to give them a chance to get more power and influence. Because we observe what's going on in the border right now. It's the same thing. The idea of bringing in more people to give them voting rights is they think it will help them obtain more power and influence and stay in power.
Yeah.
Because you have to ask yourself, how is it that these Palangi guys got the voting power so quickly, because that
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense, right? You just
Mm.
showed up, yeah. You married some of the royalty, but this is not your island. You're still
Yeah.
an outsider. Your children maybe, right, are
Yeah.
part of it because of, but they have a genetic tie to the island. It doesn't make sense to me why they would have given these guys
Mm.
power so quickly to make those decisions, unless there were others in the nobility of the Hawaiian that were trying to position themselves for power, which is we see that all over the place. We're
Yeah.
not saying Hawaiians are somehow uniquely
Immune to.
divided. This
Yeah.
happens all over the place. I don't
Mm.
know. That's something interesting that I just kind of come to my mind, observing the political environment that
Yeah.
we're in right now.
I'm sure there were stuff like that, maneuvering stuff happening. That's why it was so quickly. Caucasians, non-Hawaiians, were able to get into the legislature.
Influence the
Yes.
legislation, and yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Ni'i House sold for $2,000. That's what
I didn't.
Mo's saying here.
Okay.
Um,
Nice small.
yes, remember Kamehameha brought them together, but before him, each island had its own tu'i. Okay. Yeah, and he had to go conquer them, right? He had to force them. There
Yeah.
was no vote for me. If there was, it was vote for me or I push you off the cliff.
Pretty. Yeah, and pretty much the only island, from what I understand, was Kauai that was just diplomacy. They said they will recognize Kamehameha as the
Mm,
single sovereign Tui pretty much in all of Hawaii. But Kamehameha, he literally went and forced Maui. Maui was a bloody war. Oahu was a bloody war, forcing those high chiefs to obey his command,
his
except
man.
Kauai.
And here's what Mo is saying is so probable still had people who were not happy. Exactly, right?
That's what you brought
We
up to it. Yeah.
we like to think that, like, oh, the Hawaiian kingdom was 100%
Yeah.
unified. And the same thing with Tonga. Tonga
Yeah.
was not necessarily under Tupou the first. Everyone was aligned and everybody was pro. Tupou the first was still at risk even after being king. That's really what blows my mind in some
Hmm.
of our conversations, is what Laufidi Tonga did for Tupou the first. Like, that to me is amazing, right?
Yep.
To see that's someone who had vision and understood what it needed to happen to give the nation a chance to survive,
Yes.
right? And so yeah.
No, and this is why Tonga Tongatapu is very unique, and we're able to learn a lot. Like when I see what happened in Hawaii, I feel sad and stuff, of course, because they're part of us as part of the Polynesian nation. You know, it's just that those ideas and stuff were floating to Tonga, and they were able to adjust. It's the same thing
Mm,
with same thing with here in New Zealand when they had two treaties, one in English, one in Maori, but both of them were official documents. Then you have certain groups believing they were keeping the treaties, but they were really not. So Tonga being able to learn, like what I said, the floating of best ideas and things happening around them, they were able to change because what Itubo did, he just had one constitution written in Tongan. Everyone had to obey that
yeah.
constitution.
All
Hawaii,
parliament conducted in
yes.
Tongan.
What did he learn from Hawaii? Don't give land, don't give any authority of land to non-Polynesians
Tongans,
because
yeah.
you give them some rights and they can call on their bigger neighbors or their former nations to come and assist them because they're still citizens of those nations. Because that's what nations do. If anyone's in trouble, that's right. You let them know, and if then whoever's in charge, if there's a political gain from it, they're gonna send it because they're not gonna save their own citizens. There's a political gain to gonna on top of that because that's a lot of resources to save a certain amount of people. Tonga was able to learn you lease lands to non-Tongans, but only Tongans can own land, and that's what Tonga learned. So it's just part of the. It just makes you think on how the empire worked in Tonga. That Tonga was able to learn from its right the branches and stuff because all ideas it's kind of like Rome, all ideas and everything kind of goes
led to
floats
the
down to
center.
led to the center. So that's how I view it. It's unfortunate you can't change anything, but it just makes you think on how Tonga was able to construct those things. There's a reason.
Not 100%. Hey, Masi, you know this person?
Oh yes,
Hey,
ma, Kimbo Slice.
hey, Kimbo Slice. So remember that the Constitution was written in English, not Hawaiian, and the natives did not understand as much. Yeah, that's
See,
one of
that's
the
another.
other things, right? Kind of going along
Yeah.
with what you were saying.
Yes. Oh, and I would trust Kim Fale on this because she taught at Kamehameha schools, the Hawaiian schools, so she would know a thing or two. I didn't know that was written in English and not Hawaiian. See, that's another one.
Yeah,
It's another reason.
100%.
Takes advantage of your own native people.
Hey, Chiteng, Malo,
Hey,
appreciate the
Malo,
love.
Malo.
So Polynesian Prince has a question here. Masi, want to see what your thoughts are. He says, okay, so when Tonga had Samoa under the empire, was Vava'u and Ha'apai equally under the influence as Samoa as far as slavery? Because Vava'u wasn't considered Tonga until King Tupo the First, asking, not stating.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts, Masi?
To me, I would view as during the whole Tongan Empire, like what Polynesian Prince is saying. I think each island was viewed as a certain island. It's just Ha'apai and Vava'u was just the proximity to
Mhm.
Tongatapu, so they were able to have a lot more closer ties. Same thing with Samoa and Fiji. But when he says here, because Vava'u wasn't considered Tonga until Tupo the First, is he meaning that Tonga becoming a nation under the Constitution of Tupo the First, or because
Yes. I
okay,
think he's trying to say is not only becoming a nation, but the unification,
hmm,
right? Because there was a Tu'i Ha'apai, a Tu'i Vava'u at the time. But I think we got to take it into context. If you go deeper or earlier in the history, there was no quote unquote Tu'i Ha'apai or Tu'i Vava'u. The Tu'i Ha'apai and the Tu'i Vava'u were self-proclaimed out
yes,
of the empire disintegrating to the state that it was before. So I think what you're saying, Masi, and I agree, is if you go further back, there was no Tu'i Ha'apai, Tu'i Vava'u. It was just the Tongan Empire. And
yeah,
Samoa, Vava'u, Ha'apai were just looked as the same. Like it's almost like
yeah,
villages within Tongatapu, right?
hmm,
Just another
hmm,
village or another island within the empire itself of equal standing,
hmm,
right? The only difference is, like you said, through proximity, you probably had, rather than just the Tu'itonga intermarrying into Ha'amoa and to Hawaii
hmm,
and Tahiti, because Ha'apai and Vava'u were so close, you probably had all of the lower nobles intermarrying within each other as well. So there was a lot closer ties. And we even saw with William Mariner that some of the Vava'u and the Ha'apai chiefs, when Ulukalala comes back from assassinating the Tu'ikanu'Kupolu, when he fights them, they don't run away to Tongatapu. They actually run away to Samoa, to
yes,
Ha'amoa. So in theory, I guess what we're getting to, Polynesian princes, Vava'u, Ha'apai, Samoa, Tahiti, everybody, Wallace, Futuna, they were just kind of viewed as islands within the empire.
yes. That's how I believe it was viewed during the Tuitonga era, the peak.
Yeah. Let me know, let us know, Polynesian Prince, if that answers your question.
Mhm.
Um, so, oh yeah, where Water Bears, the official PR
Hey,
representative of the
Malo, water bears.
Polynesian Kalapu here, Polynesianized, Kalapu Polynesianized. So, Babylonian Empire had the divine feminine, a woman in power and seen as deity. Could that have reached all the way to Tonga, corrupted the misperception of Hikuleo being a woman rather than God?
What do you think,
Possibly.
Tua?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we see a little bit of this even with the Jews,
Hmm.
right? There was a perception of the divine feminine, and even throughout Jerusalem, they found like a bunch of these little, kind of like those little carvings that they found of quote unquote Hikuleo,
Yeah.
but there were these carvings of the divine feminine that kind of represented fertility, right,
Mm,
and life.
mm,
And there was actually a term. I can't remember what the term is, but there's an actual term in the Jewish theology that is related to the trees that is a representation of the divine feminine. So it's very possible, water bears, that that's something similar to that is going on, right? Because the divine feminine is associated with fertility and life.
Yes.
And then you could potentially have that misperception to hikuleo. It's happened in other places. Obviously, you're saying in the Babylonian, there's examples of that happen in Israel. So it could be real possibility. Babylonian Empire was around the same time that Tuitonga, 1500 BCE. Okay. Yeah, I mean, very possible. This so 1500 years ago, around the same time. Yeah, this is right around the early stages of the Tuitonga, but with the Tangaloa, who knows how many years, hundreds to thousands of years before that. So from our perspective, possible, very possible.
Yeah.
So kind of commenting here, Mo saying, yeah, but they were all under the Tuitonga, 100%. Kind of like Laufiri Tonga Moe, like he's saying, all came from his offspring. He was just like Tangaloa was intermarrying throughout the Polynesian islands to maintain those relationships. Tuitonga did the same thing because in many ways, Tuitonga is Tangaloa, right? We got to think of that. We got to think that Tuitonga is Tangaloa. The only difference is they changed the title and the name, but it's a descendant of Tangaloa, and it is a continuation of governing as a religious, as a political, and as a social leader. So, yeah, 100% agree with that. Looks like we answered sufficiently for Polynesian Prince.
Polynesian Prince. If you have any more questions, shoot them through, Polynesian Prince.
Yeah, we will. And now, you know what? Since it's Trump 2024, we're going to do a political video next.
Let's go.
And then we're going to see a debate here, but it looks like there's a few more questions. Go ahead, Masi.
No, I was just going to say, when you're talking about the thing, I was just counting how many days we have left. We literally just, what, 5 days, Tua? Is it?
Yeah. Because it's Tuesday. Tuesday is the vote. Says Toa Malo and Awe Kautama Malai. Did you guys know there is a sea called the Tangaroa Sea? No, I am not aware of that. Toa.
Toa. I think I know Maoris refer Tangaroa as the ocean. So like when they say Tangaroa as the ocean. So that's kind of my understanding with that, Toa.
You know what? Maybe Tangaloa is Poseidon. Maybe Tangaloa is what's Jason Momoa's character again?
What is it? The Aquaman.
Aquaman. Maybe Tangaloa is Aquaman. They were the ocean was speaking to the Palangis. Make a Polynesian Aquaman. Because he's Tangaloa. Right? And all the fishes were just telling the Palangis. Here's another question / comment. Another thing, guys, that to show how strong the Tongan Empire was, do you hear if any time of Tonga high royalty sending women to Samoa, etc., you're always hear of women getting sent to, yes. And that's a fair point, right? I think what he's saying here is the male heir was always from Tonga, and the intermarriages of women, it was women being brought to Tonga Tapu for the marriages, which is very true. That shows the dominant, that flow of the marriage shows dominance and centrifugal power in Tonga, on Tonga Tapu. So I think that's a fair point.
And didn't you mention, like, especially when the Tuitongas had a bunch of daughters, it was normal for them to send them kind of in Fiji, you would say?
Yes.
You brought that up, right?
Yeah. And it was a lot of the rumor is because the Tuitonga didn't want, with the Fahu and all that. They didn't want anyone in Tonga to have that social standing above them in the nuclear family. So they would have them marry someone not of the royal blood to, I guess, in a way, further distance them from having social influence over the Tuitonga.
Okay.
Here's another question, Masi. Who is Tangaloa? A man, half demon? What are your thoughts? The answer: the first Tangaloa. Who is he?
The first, to me, the first Tangaloa is the first person that came and had the knowledge of structuring governorship, right? Governorship that came from, my opinion, came from the Americas, and it was a title, a name that was bestowed Tangaloa on the certain people that had a certain knowledge. Maui was just a title because of the certain knowledge they had with astronomical knowledge of navigating the seas and the stars. So that was their title of people having that kind of knowledge, and that was passed on with different generation of people having that knowledge passed on, having that title Maui. And it was the same thing with the Tangaloa. So to me, Tangaloa was not a half demon or anything. It was just a regular person, but a very skillful person and high rank that knew the way of structuring um, a government, and also the ability to govern, because that was a skill too. So that's the Tangaloa to me. It was
Mhm.
just a person that had that title, that had that knowledge of how to govern and set up a government. So that's, I don't know if you had anything to add to it, but that's
Yeah,
my understanding of Tangaloa, the first
yeah.
Tangaloa,
The
and that
first
being passed on.
Tangaloa was kind of like the kingly. I guess one of the ways to look at it too is I like to call them the quote unquote founding fathers of the Tongan civilization or the Polynesian
Mm,
civilization. And there's three of them, and they all had three different roles. Tangaloa was the kingly or the royal person, like Masi was sharing. This person had a lot of knowledge on government structure, right?
uh-huh,
Maybe even had kind of like a prophetic role,
mm,
right? With Hikuleo,
mm,
and was kind of like the leader. The second one is Maui. That was kind of like the scientific person, the navigator, the person who kind of knew astronomy, knew the heavens. And then the third was the Taula. That was the priest, the priestly function. So
right.
these three, I guess
The
I
keeper
would
of the
call
old religion.
yes, the three founding fathers, quote unquote, of the Polynesian civilization. And Tangaloa was the leader, the kingly line for that. Mo here with another comment. Like the Tu'imanua, why it never got conferred? Was it because the Tu'imanua sent his daughters for the Tu'itonga? What are your thoughts on that, Masi? So basically, like kind of
There was
understanding the
somebody, yes,
relationship.
I think there was somebody that brought up that maybe the Tuitonga also had the Tui Manua maybe first, and then became the Tuitonga later on. And because he became the Tuitonga, he took, like, just like King Charles. If he has a Samoan Matai title, right? But he has the title of King Charles. King Charles is gonna take more presidents because that's obviously the stronger part of his role.
That
The
title, yeah.
Tuitonga, the title, right? The title. Tuitonga, because you're in at its peak, that's gonna take a more prevalent um uh that's going to take a prevalent let's just say importance than the Tui Manua, if he held both, because he's going to be more
Mm,
recognized with the Tui Tonga, because that was where the influence and power was.
yeah. You know, I actually was thinking about this the other day, Masi, and I wanted to see what your thoughts are and what the viewers' thoughts are as to how, when we look at the timing, right? The Tui Manua, as far as we've dated it so far, four or
500.
500 years ago, it's around the time, roughly, so to speak, of Tuitatui
Mm,
and so
mm.
forth. But it also seems to be around the same time that Kaulufonua Fekai. It's somewhere in that area,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mm,
And when we look at if it's around Kaulufonua Fekai's time frame, depending on where the actual dates are, so when the Tuitonga leaves and resides on in Haamoa, he creates the Tui Haatakalaua, and then
yeah.
he leaves because he's expecting. It sounds like when Kaulufonua Fekai created the Tui Haatakalaua, it's because he knew he was going to spend a lot of his time
In
in
Upolu Savai.
Samoa and
Yeah,
going around.
yeah.
The thought that came to my mind is when who's the Tuitonga that came back? Ulaki Mata's dad.
Tapuoshi.
Tapuosi. Let's say it's Tapuosi, right? When Tapuosi leaves Haamoa to come to Tonga, he's saying, "Oh, it's time to go back. We're gonna reestablish ourselves." If we were to take that same logic, it would make sense that he would say, "I'm gonna create something like the Tu'iha Takalaua to stay behind in Haamoa to kind
Yeah.
of run his affairs." And then what does so maybe it was another son from another wife, right? He says, "Hey, you're gonna be the Tu'imanua, stay
Manua.
here. You're gonna manage. I've been here for our family's been here for 5 generations. We have a lot of ties. We have a lot of things that need to be managed, just like the Tu'iha Takalaua when the Tu'itonga decides to spend time in Haamoa."
Yeah.
And then what does he do? He tells his other 2 sons when he realizes he's going towards the end of his life, the first face that I see, that's going to be the Tu'itonga, which is why they have the name Urakimata, right? The first face that I see, whoever shows up first, that's going to be the Tu'itonga. That was just something that kind of crossed my head as
Fair point.
one potential explanation how the Tu'i Manua came to be, right? And then all the oral history in Haamoa would align because maybe this is the oldest son of another wife, right?
Yes.
So that's another quote unquote heir, another descendant of Tangaloa that would justify the Tu'imanua's rulership in Haamoa, and then how he oversaw the affairs in Haamoa, and would explain why the Tu'itonga would have a respect for the Tu'imanua and all other things. Just something that kind of crossed my mind. I don't know if any thoughts on that.
No, that's a good point to it because we kind of discussed there's some affiliation with Tuitonga, just if you put on the
Yes.
timeline. And then I think the one we discussed was it could have been an older brother because it's happened before that didn't receive the Tuitonga title, and then he received the Tui Manua, but he settled in Manua. But it was still, still um, an important figure, but he didn't receive the Tuitonga title. So I like that idea that you kind of brought up that it could have been when the Tuitonga left Tongatapu and kind of pretty much maybe I feel like maybe during that time period he went all over the empire because it seems like he based it in Savai with that Pulimere and kind of went around Haamoa and then looks like he did like a very expansion everywhere. I don't know to
Military
resubmit,
campaign.
resubmit like now you probably heard oral stories of me and had this thing of me, but I'm gonna show you this is me. The Tuitonga exists, and maybe he did like a whole campaign, go all over the Pacific Ocean, all over and
Hence the
visit
name
very
Fekai, right?
yes, yes. And then you get what's remember we went through the names after him was Ha'a Vakafuku, the Tuitonga,
Yes.
right? Just like it would have been crazy for those like 5 generations of Tuitongas going around. And then that's a good explanation when it was gone, right? They set up a new
New Tu'i line.
political
Yeah.
Tui line to kind of govern because they're gonna be away for the empire's affairs, especially the Inasi and the Polo Polo. Those were like the 2 main jobs of the Tui in Tongatapu. And yeah, I see that Tua. After living in Ha'amoa for 5 generations, they're about to go back and say, okay, we're done. Let's go. Maybe they had to go and reestablish back in Tongatapu because we did talk about the Kauhala Uta and Kauhala Lalo. And then there's Langis in the Kauhala Lalo because this is during the time when they just recently came back from
Came back.
their round. Maybe they wanted to reestablish we can build whatever Langi we want to in the Kauhala
Yeah.
Lalo where the Tui
Yeah, because
Hatagalawa was
that's
that. Yeah, right. It's
because
not. We
that
don't
was
have to
one
build
of
langis in
the
the Kawala Uta
yeah,
side.
because in one of that study that we reread, right? That's even the PhDs were saying it was kind of weird because this Tuitonga built his mound, his the Pai Telea, built it technically on the Tu'iha Takalaua's side of the
Right.
road,
Yeah,
right? Which is a little. They said that didn't really make sense to them, but like
yeah.
we were saying, maybe that was a power move to be like,
Power.
I'm back.
I'm back. Yeah, I can do whatever I want now. Yeah.
Yes.
but good points.
Oh yeah, Wara Bears knows where the Tangaroa Ocean is. According to the flat Earth map, on the other side of the ice walls, there's an ocean called Tangaroan Ocean. Maria, Vaini.
My
Vaini.
beat town in the house.
Poto.
Maro.
Vaini. Poto. Vaini
Yeah.
knows these
Yeah.
things.
Let's go. Maria water bears.
Masi, are you familiar with the Anunnaki?
Ooh, no Toa. Toa, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know about you, Toa.
So the
You familiar with Toa?
Anunnaki are supposedly these beings that brought a lot of technology, and also they did some genetic experiments with humans and created the humans.
Oh,
They're supposed to be from another planet. They were sent here and they created humans to mine gold.
okay.
So
Okay. Okay. How
I
about
it's
you?
kind of a
What's your thoughts on that, Toa? I have no idea. I have
see.
no idea.
This is one of those where oral history has value, and just maybe the fact that they've been mentioned not only in like the Middle East, but they have very similar carvings of the beings in like the Americas and other areas. It seems like there was some kind of group that was recognized, but it kind of gets hard because it is really ancient, it is really old.
Mm,
How do we separate fact from fiction, right? This is one of the challenges of oral history,
yeah.
is not being able to navigate it. I think there has to be something to it, Toa, but it's really, really hard to try and separate the truth from the good storytellers that are just adding
Mm,
additional information to make something entertaining. Here's another. Oh man, it's getting busy over here. It says, I'm pretty sure Tonga did rule Manu. I don't know why and where you think Tonga never ruled Manua. It's not that they never ruled Tui. It's we used the example of George Vason the last time we had this conversation. It's not that the Tui Tonga didn't rule over the Tui Manua. There was just a level of respect and understanding. And George Vason shows us how this is a relatively common practice. And so the Tui Hatakalawa, obviously, very powerful chief. He gives George Vason some land, I think in the
to
Kauvai
cultivate.
area.
Yeah.
And the Tui Hatakalawa obviously rules over where George Vason lives. And he could have gone to George Vason like he would to any other chief in the area and demand tribute at his
Mm,
will. Because in theory, it's all his land, right?
yeah.
But George Vason says that the Tu'iha Takalaua wouldn't do that to him out of just being kind and respectful to him, right?
Mm,
Like he would never go to George Vason and demand tribute because of that kindness. It was basically a gesture of kindness and of love. That's what we're saying is the same thing between the Tu'itonga and the Tu'imanua. There was a respect or an appreciation. I don't know why exactly. Like it was family, but maybe even more than just family. Maybe the Tu'imanua, the first Tu'imanua, did something special, something
mm,
meaningful or valuable to the family, and so out of respect for that, the Tu'imanua was allowed to be autonomous
mm,
within the Tu'itonga's role or
yeah.
rule. So that's I think what we're kind of saying, Tui, and not that the Tu'imanua wasn't under the authority of the Tu'itonga. I mean, because we look at Tau Island, yes, it was well fortified, but they didn't have
Defensive.
enough
Yeah.
people. If the Tu'itonga were to bring all of his subjects, it's not impenetrable,
Yeah.
right? I think they would have been able to conquer it, but they didn't want to.
Mm.
So, oh Yahweh, let's see here. Here's another one. Tongan warriors spend a lot of time out at sea at battle conquering, collecting, and just come back home kekai, and then boom boom, and letting the family know they have new siblings around the Pacific. Yahweh.
Good stuff. Good
Maria,
stuff, Jay.
Maria Tama, G. Maria Tama. Oh,
Yeah.
your analogies. Oh, Slick Rick. Hey, Slick Rick. Good
Hey,
to see
wow.
you. He says that supposedly there was a Tuifisi came from the Anunnaki. Well, they did say that the Anunnaki were doing like genetic like experimentations and combining. So maybe the Polynesian and the Melanesian mix comes
Yeah.
from the Anunnaki.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, any kind of closing comments on that, Masi?
No, I enjoyed the questions from all of you viewers. So keep it coming throughout the live. Yeah.
No, 100%. Here's another comment. It seems Tonga was very well established society way before. That was one of the things. I think it was Abel Tasman and some other people when they first arrived to Tonga Tapu for the first time. One of the biggest observations they have was how Tonga was the agriculture was very established, right? The land was farmed very well. That means stability. People aren't at war all the time. They're farming because there's stability. And here's the other interesting thing too. Toa is one of the articles that we looked at a few weeks ago identified Nukureka as a founding settlement for Polynesia because they identified a new farming technique, the pit farming, that the oldest type of pit farming they found in Nukureka, and that type of farming technique was critical to allow people to live on atolls and small islands in the past. Let me see. Yeah, here's another interesting point here. Imagine what archaeologists would find if the royal family allows excavation all over Tonga. That would be interesting, right? But out of respect and so forth, they're saying no.
Well, because you're getting people that are recently still being buried there. I'm just thinking of our Langi
active
Malmaloa.
ancestors.
We still have, there's still family that just we had a funeral there like 2-3 years ago. So it's very difficult,
Yep, 100%. You go to any island in the Pacific, there's stories of Tongans visiting or invading there. That's true, right? And that's a very common thing to see. Tonga was civilized, had structure, and still here today. 100%, right? That's one of the things we recognize that was allowed us to survive colonization. Now, we are going to. I haven't listened to this video, but this video is apparently a debate between Mark Cuban, who is turning out to be quite the beta and is kind of basically supporting anti-Kumala, and then obviously Dana White, who is Uncle Donald's best friend, basically.
Runs UFC,
I guess they're having a debate here about who we should be considering for our vote, but let's listen to it.
Dana, love you. You're so wrong. Trump, inflation was up 25% over the Obama economy he inherited. Ask him about Yemen, where he decided not to take action and allowed 100,000 people to keep on dying in Yemen. Talk to him about his tariffs. What worked with his tariffs? He had 4 years to make tariffs work with China. China kicked his ass. China took him to court, right? Because he didn't know how tariffs worked, and it hurt the economy. The economy was rolling along, and it got so hit by the tariffs that his appointment to the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, had to come back in and cut interest rates 3 times. And then we get to the real point of reckoning, the pandemic. And what does he do? He says, if we don't test people, the viruses didn't really happen. He holds back on resources, except for Vladimir Putin, to keep people from getting healthy. That is not an accomplished president, Dana. He has not done anything. What he got, he inherited. You know what?
Right,
his administration was the same as his personal wealth. He inherited it.
I got to jump in with course corrections here. Number one, the real wages, which is really the only economic barometer for the folks, was up 8.2% in the 4 years Trump was president. 8.2 across the board for working Americans. Fact. Under Biden Harris, it is around 1%. No COVID pandemic. They have failed. Number two, inflation didn't start because Putin and the Arabs did anything. Inflation started, and I don't know whether you know this, Mr. Cuban, but Biden signed in his first week in office at least 20 executive orders, making it harder for every fuel company to harvest their product, whether it be fracking or oil or anything. The fuel company said, holy you know what, we're going to get hosed because our prices to get the stuff out of the ground are quadrupling. So we're going to do it retail now. That's what ignited it, not Putin and not Saudi Arabia.
Dana, love.
What are your thoughts?
No, I'm just looking at that first comment. That was so funny.
That's
Mark
what I
is
was
on
looking
DD
at.
list. Because I'm like, because
Doesn't
I do
make
find
sense
it.
why he's taking this position.
Yeah, and not only that, I just find it really weird because Hillary. If I compared the two women that ran for the Democrat side, Hillary is much more competent than Kamala. If I had to choose, but I'm just trying to figure out. Mark wasn't this so vocal even when Hillary was going. It's only
Something is
now
going on.
something's up, and then I was like, there's something that I don't know. He has some against Trump that maybe something could be he's on the Diddy list, and that's gonna be shared. I don't know. I just find it very strange, but man, but I just don't know why. Because we all know she literally just got put in there by the president or whoever runs the
No
Democratic
one's
Party.
voted for her
No one's
yet.
voted for her, and for her to have such a bad policy, doesn't even have anything out, and to make it this far, and for him sticking his neck out for, dang, somebody that hasn't been doing this for a while, something's up. Doesn't make sense, but who knows? Everyone has their different motives, but we all know
Yeah.
that Trump's economic activity during his 4 years were some of the best times,
You
money wise,
know,
for all Americans. But
I don't even have to listen to anyone. I just have to go back to how my family was feeling 5 years ago, 6 years ago
to
versus now.
let we let our viewers know how much you spent on food when it was Trump, and then how it
Yeah.
isn't now,
Like
right?
when I was just Trump, obviously I have a slightly large family. I got 7 kids, right? Grocery bills around $1,000, sometimes under. My goal was to get it under. Now it's getting close to 2 to 3, right? I'm just
And
like,
Mark is telling you things are better now
yeah,
than then.
he's trying to tell me that like Joe Biden is killing it, right?
Maybe,
And just to people know, in some parts of Texas, it
yeah.
was $1 a gallon.
Mm,
Now it's like $3 for a
mm.
gallon of gas, right?
And they're still trying to tell you things are better now than then.
Exactly. Even if I had
Crazy.
no money to go and watch movie, I can fill up my car in Hayayane in Texas, right? And just be like, hey, Taugialo Eva,
Yeah.
right? But we could do that and so, but yeah, I think he must not only be on the Diddy list, he must be on the Epstein list too. Because if you're just on one list, you might try and hold out, but when you're on both lists, then you become like Mark Cuban. How this goes to show that America is so awesome that you can be an idiot and still be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't have to be Elon Musk. We look at Elon Musk and we're like, dude,
yeah,
that guy's smart. I
Yeah.
can see why he's a billionaire. Then you have guys like Mark Cuban, and you're like, he sold and made his money in the .com boom.
Yeah.
He sold it at the right time.
Mhm.
He wasn't that smart. He got lucky, and then he had money to buy the Mavs, right?
Yes.
Made a good move. Granted, he made a good move there. Bought it for a couple $100 million, sells it for a couple billion bucks.
Mhm.
Right?
And he's
It's
still
like,
he's still the executive. He had an awesome
yeah, he's still
deal.
getting
He
paid.
sold it. Yeah.
Right? So America is so awesome you can be an idiot and still be a billionaire. Like that's how awesome America is. But yeah, any other thoughts on that, Masi?
No, it's a very interesting election. We're getting, things. Both sides are doing their last kind of wound up. I did find it interesting that Kamala was not able to do a 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan. My man Trump, at 78 years old, did a 3-hour plus podcast that's over 40 million, like in a week,
Yeah,
views. So, and then apparently I watched a feedback that Joe Rogan said that Kamala had some certain expectations. She didn't want
yeah,
to she only can do like an hour, and then there was other like requirements that Joe Rogan couldn't concede and do.
yeah.
So
They
what
wanted
happened?
him to fly somewhere and
Yeah,
meet
do it.
him.
Not do it in
Yeah,
Austin.
in his
Do it in,
studio. Yeah, and
and
he
he's
said
like,
he didn't
no.
want to do it because
Yeah,
he likes his studio because it's just them. He said, if
yeah,
I go somewhere else, I don't have control. They'll probably have their people in the space, and
yeah,
it just wouldn't make sense.
yeah, yeah.
I guess yeah. Hey, Billy Malo says Mark is delusional.
Malo,
I don't think he's delusional. I think it like some of the
he's a
comments on
smart
the
guy.
video.
Yeah, he's
I
doing
think
this
he's
is with
on the Diddy
intention,
list
Leo.
or the Epstein list. Someone is holding a gun to him and saying, "You better get out there."
Yeah, a
Right?
billionaire. Yeah, no, I agree with you. Tua, William Rathule, he's doing this with intention. He's just being a good lawyer for his client because you're not a billionaire being delusional.
Yes. Here's another list that Clyde Moore thinks he's on,
Thank you.
which would mean he's on the P Diddy list because didn't they find like a billion gallons of like baby oil or
Maybe
something?
all over his mansion. Yeah,
Yeah.
too funny.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, Mo is here saying, America politics is a mess. Democracy,
It's
and this is
usually
the thing. Democracy is messy in general, right? Like you look at communism. When it comes voting time and politics, it's clean. Do you hear anyone coming out and saying that President Xi is an idiot from the inside China? Do you hear that about the North Korean supreme leader? No, it's really clean, right? It's just I don't know. It's I agree. It's messier than usual.
yeah.
Clyde Moore is saying, "Hey, Mussy, where are you voting from? Tell them the plan. Where are you
Yeah.
gonna be?"
So I'll be heading to America tomorrow, specifically Hawaii. Cast my vote, and also cast my vote for Uncle Trump, and spend time with family there. My parents are still there, so visit with them, and also just catch up with some family and stuff. So be there for about 2 weeks, and then come back. So hopefully celebrate, get the celebration in American soil over there during the victory. But you
Hopefully,
never know.
Kahuku.
Hopefully 2020 is not a 2020 that it's 2 months and I come back and find out the results.
Well, see, that's the thing. If it's a one night call, Trump's gonna win. If this is, we need 5 weeks to count it, I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, way.
yeah.
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah,
be back in
way.
New Zealand and
Still
having a
waiting.
heartbreaker. Yeah, but yeah. What
Agreed,
is
100.
Koku? Is Koku
What was
playing
that?
to it? Did you mention something
No,
about
I was
Koku?
gonna say Kahuku better celebrate it like it's the state championship. Dude, Kahuku lost
Okay,
to Campbell or whoever.
but that was during the regular season. I thought the
Yes,
playoffs
regular.
should be.
Yeah, the
Yes,
playoffs
they
I think
lost.
are this week for the OIA. But Kahuku, I mean, had high expectations, but they've had a couple losses.
Well, Mililani also lost to Campbell too. So Campbell
Yeah,
seems to
Campbell's
be
undefeated right now.
yes. So Campbell seems to be a new. I don't know. It could be a one-time thing, but we'll see. Maybe this is the start of dynasty for Campbell. But
Well, I brought this up. Sorry for the noise
no,
here,
you're
but
good.
real
You're
quick,
good.
Mo says they need some kava to relax. 100%.
Yes.
100%. But
Yes.
this, since we're talking about Hawaii, high school football. Read that, Mussy.
Bishop Gorman, wide receiver and Hawaii football commit. Brandon Ngaea transfers to Mililani. Okay.
What is going on? Remember that other quarterback?
Yes, yeah. Is it Modern Day? Or
Yeah,
no,
Modern Day's quarterback.
was it Modern Day or Bosco? John Bosco's
One of those
big
powerhouse
school.
transferred to Hawaii. And
There's
now
some.
you got another high profile.
Are they giving them
Chale,
houses? Because I know
what
the
is
houses in
going
Hawaii.
on? Yeah, what's
I know the
the
Hawaii's are.
NIL deal going on over there?
That is interesting. That is interesting. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on because
Moya
I know
here confirms it's Bosco.
Bosco. Yeah, because I did see that Kahuku got one. Now Mililani. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
You know what? I know what's going on, Masi. They're all getting a piece of the famous Hawaii rail. They're getting shares. They're getting shares in the Hawaii rail. Like they're gonna give a small scope of the work of the contract to them
Hey,
because is it
no,
still not
so
done, right?
I don't know. That's what I was gonna ask. Am I gonna be able to test out the Hawaii rail, or is it
The
still under
multi-billion
construction?
dollar rail.
That rail has been going on since I in high school, and I graduated high school 2009, folks, and that's still going. Like, come on, if that's not corruption popping in your eyes, there, something is going on. Come on, Hawaii. That's what happens when
Um,
Hawaii keeps voting the blue wave. Eh?
See, everyone here is saying anything to beat Campbell. Everyone is saying that all these high schools in Hawaii are recruiting
If Campbell
all
becomes
these mainland
dominant, yes.
players.
If Campbell becomes dominant like more than 1 year, then they're for real. Because this could be a one-hit wonder with Campbell.
Hey, look at this, Masi.
So the Campbell coach wore a shirt when they beat Kogu saying rooted, not recruited.
So the same thing that Kahuku used to accuse my alma mater of, recruiting. That's the only reason why we win. Apparently, Kahuku has a reputation of recruiting now. So the Campbell coach is the one wearing rooted, not
Rooted.
recruited. My, have the tides changed?
Times have changed, huh, Tua? So funny.
That is hilarious. But yeah, I thought this was interesting. This is something that kind of popped up in my feed, and I was like, what in the world are they paying these kids to go to Hawaii, where a gallon of milk sometimes is like $15? These guys are going, and he's in Vegas. Vegas is a relatively cheap, Nevada is a relatively cheap state, but everything is cheap compared to Hawaii.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was
That is
kind of interesting.
Mm.
Let's see here. Man, this is kind of an interesting video. Much like this is in Samoa. Watch this.
Mm. Mm.
And this is in Samoa.
Yeah. All right.
Looks pretty nice,
Yeah. Really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I
That's the
mean,
way, man. That's the way to cut costs. Is because it's not easy building, especially when you're building like places like in Samoa, Tonga. So if you can get like a container and just to make it cost more cheaper, man, that's the way to go, man. That's the
yeah.
way.
And it was pretty cool. They have the insulation in there and
Yep.
everything. It just looks nice, Nothing, out of control, but just looks clean, looks organized. And like you
That's all
said,
you need
quick.
in the islands, man.
Yeah.
Just,
Just
just a
wonder why
little.
we don't see more of these in the islands.
Mm,
Or maybe it's becoming a trend now. I don't know.
it's becoming a trend. Hopefully, hey, anything that's gonna be cost effective to make things cheaper. Because if you're like, that's the hard thing of building something that's relatively nice is you
Uh-huh.
gotta import a lot of your materials, and it's not cheap to get all those materials to come and pay the levy fees and stuff. But if you can get like containers like that, which exist because it's always exporting other goods, getting containers and make it cheaper, man, that's the way. That should be the way moving forward for the small island states.
Yep. Hey, Masi,
What's up?
let's shift gears here to college football, man. We need to
Let's do
revisit our
it.
predictions for especially for BYU. Mussy the
Yep.
genius. No one could see it but Mussy was saying BYU might be 8-0. I
Yep.
was very doubtful. I thought at best 5-1.
Mhm.
Right? But
Mhm.
kind of give the summary of how you're feeling about BYU football, what you kind of see, and then we'll react to a video about Deion Sanders and Buffalo. But just
Buffalo.
kind of tell
Yeah.
the people what you're seeing about BYU football right now.
Yeah. I know we had another brother of ours, Lee. What did he project to Tua? Was he lower? Was he just thinking a mediocre season? Right?
I think Lee and I were thinking like a 3 or
Seven,
4 loss.
3, 4 loss. Yeah. I kind of predicted BYU would do pretty well. They're actually kind of, if they keep going, there's a chance they could lose 2 games because I predicted for my remembrance 2 losses, so that's still possible with 4 remaining games. But I out of all the football um, teams that I've been following, like American football, I don't follow the NFL too closely. It was more BYU. I would listen to some of their fall camp and also their spring camp. And when just when I do my errands around the house, I was hearing a lot of good things. And these you can only hear these when if you're not listening to the local guys in the area. They
Mm-hmm.
were returning the same guys, but a lot of those same guys improved in nutrition. A lot of them put 10 more pounds of muscle, and they were receiving good feedback. And apparently, BYU kind of revitalized or kind of changed. They brought in a new nutritionist,
Strength
strength and
coach, right?
conditioning. Yeah, everyone was doing well under his program, so I was hearing good things about that. I was hearing good things and improvements with the O line coach, which is the O line have been really good so far. And the only thing is, they said if they can hit the quarterback, just be okay and not turn the ball over, this team
Which is
will
what
be
they've
better.
done for the most part. Yeah.
Yes, for the most part. Um, some of the analysts even said when because I still listen to them when they kind of reviewed their own analysis from spring and fall camp of BYU, the defense have actually exceeded their expectations. So it kind of exceeded mine too. I knew the defense was gonna get better in year two. I didn't know it was gonna get this
This
good.
good. I
Yeah,
mean, and kept
so
them in the game on some of the games the offense was struggling.
they're struggling and they were causing like 2 turnovers or whatever. So the defense kind of kept them in. So I was pretty confident that BYU was gonna do pretty well, and not only that, they were gonna play a lot of these teams that they played last year. BYU tends to do really well when there's a rematch with those same teams coming again. So like the teams like what's one of them? The Oklahoma State. They lost to them. They beat them this year.
Kansas State.
Kansas State. They didn't play them last year. This is the first time, but it was kind of like they were the opener, and they lost their
Mm.
opener last year. So I knew they were gonna be be a little bit like a revenge kind of tour for the BYU guys. And man, I'm just surprised that the leader, the so there's the head coach, and then there's like certain team leaders within the locker room that are really good leaders from what I've seen. They also do programs on some of the BYU podcasts they kind of do on YouTube. Looks like they're kind of holding the team accountable and holding them together to kind of think week by week, don't think ahead of themselves. So hey, I'm pretty happy with what BYU is doing, and just looking at the other teams, the top teams like Oregon. Oregon still looks beatable to me because Boise State gave them a good run, and even an FCS team, if you just get them on a good, get
Good
them on
day.
a good day, and I think BYU can make a run. So I do hope BYU at this stage wins the Big 12 title. But if not, I feel pretty comfortable that they'll at least be the second team to represent in the playoffs. But BYU's on a roll.
Yes. And what's crazy is they were picked to be the bottom,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They were picked to be the bottom of the conference. Um, now they're favored
They're on top.
for the,
Yeah,
the the top,
every
maybe
game,
go to the
every game.
playoffs. And I wanted to read this and kind of get what your thoughts are of this, Mussy. I guess this is David Hill from ESPN. He says, in an era when the best teams have the biggest budgets to lure elite recruits, BYU has a roster full of guys who have never be anywhere else, and they've proven to be the perfect combination of grit and performance and drive. Like if Diet Mountain Dew were a football team, no one understands it, but it's great.
I
What are
think I
you?
think I think I get a lot more credibility on the chemistry. I think that's a big deal when we live in an era where you get transfers coming to your program that's trying to assimilate in your locker room and try to gel. That can be sometimes it's working because I look at teams like the Miami Hurricanes. They have transfer guys that came, like that kid, that quarterback is from Washington State Cougars. He's just been injected there, and some of the guys also in the O line and D line were transfer guys, and they can work. But a lot of the other teams look like they're okay. They're not gelling. They'll probably be a lot better next year when they've kind of ingrained in the whole system because each university runs their programs a bit different. So I think he's right, and a lot of these players, and that's why a lot of people were looking down at BYU not doing well because a lot of these players were the same players who lost what 7 games last year. So,
Mhm.
but these guys have gotten better, and it's the same guys from last year. They've just up up it up a little bit. Oh, actually, up a lot, and they're just playing more cohesively and
Yeah.
better. And the big one is better quarterback play. Yeah.
This this guy can run way better than I ever imagined.
Mm,
That
mm,
29-yard run,
mm.
right, that he had this last game, he was
Yeah.
zipping right by guys. Kind of made me think of like Taysom Hill a little bit. I was like,
Eh,
hey,
eh. No, they got a good thing going, man. They got a good thing going. It's a lot of it. It's everyone is bought in. These guys understand each other, and they're playing hard and just very. I love the attitude, and even though he's such a gunslinger, what's the quarterback's name? Retzloff. I love his
mhm.
attitude, man.
He's a go-getter, stays
He's
positive,
yeah. I
you
love his
know.
attitude. He's kind of
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've seen change in the offense, which reminds me of the BYU from the 80s and the early 90s,
mm,
big plays, big throwing plays, right?
explosive
For
play.
years and years, we never had that, man. If we got one in a game, it was like, wow, we're getting it multiple times in the game. Sometimes the first play in the game. There's a whole change in like the attitude and the culture because
Mm,
when you watch the old school BYU games, that's what BYU was known for. The deep
mm,
ball, right? Like the
mm,
throwing down the field, stretching the field out. We kind of lost that. And one of my I kind of get frustrated when I read
mm,
this take here. And the reason is that's always been the case for BYU,
mm,
right?
mm.
It's just that BYU has sucked at recruiting for decades.
Yeah.
Gary
Yeah.
Crowton wasn't too bad when I was at BYU, right? Gary Crowton wasn't too bad. He was a relatively good recruiter. Where it really tanked,
Mendenhall.
Bronco Mendenhall.
Mm.
I mean, there was no, I mean, what's the biggest group that BYU can recruit from that can get you a 4 or 5-star athlete? What ethnic group?
Polynesians.
Polynesians.
Yeah.
And you know what BYU sucked at getting
Where the
all the
Polynesians.
years? Were the Polynesians.
Mm.
And you know who benefited from the years that BYU sucked at doing that? Because
The Utes, I bet. 'Cause they're
University of Utah,
yeah.
right? So what really built BYU or University of Utah, in my opinion, was because BYU was so terrible at leveraging the biggest resource that they had.
Mm.
The best chance they had to, and I was there even as a football player. I heard it even meeting with certain coaches for recruiting. They'd be like, "Oh, it's the honor code. We can't get the 5-star athletes because of the honor code."
This
We won.
preconception. Yeah.
We won a national championship. The honor code didn't
Yeah.
just pop up yesterday,
Yeah.
right? And we
Yeah.
were nationally ranked all the time with the honor code. That was just a convenient excuse.
Easy excuse. Yeah.
Easy excuse to blame that, right? So we totally neglected the Polynesian community that fits exactly what they're saying there. And even some of the other athletes, right? There's a certain culture and a certain attraction to BYU because of the church. The
Mm.
church has a ton of 5-star athletes. There's a
Mm.
ton of members who are 5-star athletes. And then if they happen to be Polynesian, so if you're a member of the church and you're a 5-star athlete, you will consider BYU 90% of the time. Now you still got to compete, right? The
Yes.
the mentality that BYU had when I was there is, oh, we're BYU. We don't have to
They come.
offer
They
that.
come.
They're
They'll
gonna
just
come
come.
anyway. And that's
Yeah.
why they lost everyone to the University of Utah. Because the University of Utah, you had Kalani was there, you
Yes.
had Whittingham, and they're like, hey, look, we can give your son the culture and the environment of we're in Salt Lake, we're in Utah,
Yeah.
we're right next to
Yeah.
the church. We can take care of them, we can provide them a great experience.
Yeah.
And then after you and then to top it off, they were getting these guys into the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? And BYU for years sucked. The only people that were drafted in the first round was Ziggy Ansah, and he was a walk-on. Like all these
Yeah.
guys were like
Used by
flukes.
accident. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so that's the reason why I agree with the analysis. But what frustrates me is that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
This thing that there are certain people that want to be at BYU, and all
Yes.
BYU had to do was put a little bit of effort into it. But
Mhm.
Mendenhall really didn't develop the relationship with the alumni. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of the alumni were frustrated with Mendenhall. I don't know if it's because Mendenhall was upset he didn't come to BYU. I heard some rumors like that because he went to what, New Mexico or Oregon
No,
State,
Oregon
some
State.
other school. Yeah. So there were some rumors about that's the reason why he didn't build a relationship with the alumni. Now Kalani has that, right?
Yeah.
And we're starting to get in that pipeline. But basically BYU's poor choices built University of Utah.
Yes. And I do find it funny that they're having a special season now, and they're remembering the 100 years of BYU football, and now they're remembering the '84 season, which is the season they won
40
the
years ago.
national.
Yeah.
Yes, won the national championship. It's the only time they've like single-handedly was voted as that time was the number one, and they got a recognition for that as the only school in the state of Utah to win a national championship. So not even sharing with anyone. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully BYU can make a run, and they have a shot, man. They have a shot, and it only helps with recruiting. Being
Yeah.
dominant, and also BYU being such a good school for quarterback, that's probably the position that they've been very consistent, probably than any other position is the quarterback, and hopefully Retzloff does well. But I want your
Stays
thoughts
healthy.
too. Stays healthy. I want your thoughts on because University of Utah is kind of like my number two team. I think it's like your number two one when BYU is
Yeah.
not doing well. What's the biggest fall? Because I'm actually surprised that Utah has fallen this low in the season. But I don't know what do you think is the reason why? Because it's a lot of them are really talented guys because they obviously won 8 games without their starting quarterback last year, but now it's like
Yeah.
they're 4 straight losses, I think, right now. So what's the issue there?
Well, I mean, look at how many coaches they've lost. Kalani, the
Mm,
Anderson guy. I mean, I'm surprised this didn't happen sooner,
okay.
right?
Mm,
Because they were losing so many players. And then I also think BYU's just been recruiting better,
that helps. Yeah.
right? And then being in the Big 12, maybe in the past, some of the players that BYU,
Yeah.
that Utah was going to get, BYU's recruiting has
Mm,
improved. In
mm,
state, I think definitely in state BYU. I mean, for Pete's sake, we had Covey playing at Provo,
yeah.
and he had family that went to BYU, and he went to Utah.
Yeah.
Like that didn't make sense. Now he's in the NFL, top talent. Like BYU is now not losing those recruiting battles, I think, and I think
Mm,
that hurts University of Utah. I also think they were so established in the Pac-12 in recruiting,
no.
and then
Yeah.
switching over. It's not that they can't get good talent in the Big 12. It's just that that's where a lot of their ground game was, so to speak. Now that they don't quote have that,
Mm,
they must be struggling to reestablish in the new. Now they have to recruit more out of Texas, probably, and Oklahoma, and some of these other places where they're having games at to attract that
mm.
talent. That probably impacted their recruiting a little bit. And then I also think they've lost so many coaches, and maybe they're
Okay.
having a hard
That's
time
probably that's
doing
probably
a
the big one.
transition.
I'm
What are your
thinking
thoughts?
I'm thinking the playing style is probably a big one. Um Utah used to be the more dominant run all the time kind of
Mm.
team and play solid defense. Well, a lot of the teams in the Pac-12, they're more finesse, like the USC, Washington Huskies. They're still good teams
West
and
Coast
like
offense.
West Coast offense style. But I think in the Big 12, everyone kind of runs a similar kind of ground and pound, kind of like a Utah kind of thing. Kansas State, and I'm just thinking like a Oklahoma State too. They kind of very physical teams, and
Ground and
TCU,
pound.
same thing. Same thing. TCU passed a lot, but TCU is still kind of a solid physical team. But I don't know. It could have been play style, and to me, it's very difficult going to a new conference and to say to dominate even if you're coming back with good teams. And it
Yeah.
was a kind of a I think it was a risk for them to not get a quarterback from the portal
Portal.
because they were banking on
Cam
rising
Rising. Yeah.
Eo. So I think that was just some missteps and mishaps along the way. But
And I also just think they gave themselves bad luck because all the Utah fans were like, we're going to smash everyone in the
bad
Big
bad
12.
karma.
Yeah. Because what? They won the Pac 12 like 2 times in a row or something like
Yes,
that. So
Pac-12
they
champs.
were they were feeling themselves a little bit too much.
Well, I was gonna say to me, it's yeah, that was good to win your conference, but like to me, it would have been this. I wouldn't speak because you got to win the whole thing. How can you win your conference and you didn't win the whole thing? You know what I mean? Because there was a couple times Utah had opportunities to represent the Pac-12 in the in the 14, but they never made it. But because now it's only going to be a lot harder, like you said, because now it's a different recruiting. Because you would sell to your recruits, right? Being the only school in the state of Utah to be in the big conference, but now
A
you have
Power 5
BYU,
conference. Yeah.
Power Five. Now there's only Power Four, and then you have BYU. Now you got to work extra harder to recruit some of these kids. And I mean, I find BYU. Retzloff even mentioned it, and he's not LDS. He said BYU is just a good place. It's a safe school. It's safer than Salt Lake. We already had 2 gunshots and guys passed away at Salt Lake, right? So
Jeez.
Provo is a relatively
Happy
safer
Valley.
place. Yes, safer place. Education wise, BYU is ranked a lot higher, except the medical school in the University of Utah. But everything else, BYU
BYU just got a
ranked higher.
medical school. They're gonna get a
Yeah,
medical school.
they're gonna get one, right? And then you add the potential for playing in the biggest stadium. That now BYU is gonna say we have the biggest stadium in the Big 12. They can be looked as the big dog in the conference. So you want to play for the bigger team, you have bigger
And
audience.
I think the Big 12, I think the commissioner and the conference leadership knew this, but I don't think the Big 12 fans understood it.
Mm,
BYU has a national footprint, right?
yeah,
And UCF saw this, right? The
yeah,
last
yeah,
UCF game, like there were more like
yeah,
BYU fans than UCF fans.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
doesn't matter where BYU goes. That's why we were able to go independent and still see some
Last
success.
and last this long. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
So yeah, I think it's gonna be a lot to me. Utah in that time frame, they should have taken their chances to try to win the whole thing. It's only gonna get a lot harder now that you're in the same conference
mhm,
as BYU because BYU is very attractive. Brats have said I can just go to BYU. There's less distractions and it's just football, and you can do
yeah,
that at BYU.
100%. Let me see here. I have a let's switch gears here real quick and go to MMA with the
Oh, I felt
blessed area.
bad. Dang,
Yeah, really bummed to
dang.
see this. Oh, but real quick before we get into it, T Style, welcome.
Hey,
Malo,
don't stop.
Malo,
Hello,
welcome.
hello.
Yeah, I was really bummed about this, man. I
Yeah, I was
love
pulling
him
for him.
and
Yeah.
yeah. But let's watch this. There's another video too I wanted to show, just kind of his reaction after the
Okay.
fight.
Fight. I thought I had it. I thought I had at least one of them. The first one I know he took me down. So, and then at the ending he had that takedown. So it is what it is. I felt good. Showing off my hands. I was landing. I was being fast. I think I had him surprised in there. And like I said, I was doing good until I wasn't. By it. I thought.
He's just positive. I really like the energy that he brings, and really, I think he's just a great representation of the culture. I love his mentality, the way he thinks, and I wanted to show this. Right? So he just lost, and then they show him
Living, man.
Oh, he's surfing. I didn't know Max Holloway can surf.
and a special right there.
That's pretty impressive, man.
You just gotta.
To me, I think he lives up to his name, blessed. Like he's keeping it in perspective. Oh, everybody wants to win, right? Nobody likes to lose, let alone be knocked out. But he's like, you know what? I was doing good. I felt great, but this happens. And then to see him, you know what? Gonna go back, enjoy life. There's a lot to look forward to. But I can't wait for him to come back and hopefully get his next win and continue the blessed era. Any thoughts on that, Mussy?
No, good positive. Press conference that he gave. He just it wasn't his night, and but he felt good. Gave his best foot forward. But hey, you can't win all the time. If we were winning all the time, wouldn't the world be no poverty or no social issues? If we're always
World
winning and
peace, right?
world peace, right? But good perspective. He lost, but look, he's made a choice that he is blessed. Go catch a wave, forget your worries, and whenever he's ready to come back, we're all looking forward to it, especially myself because I'm a fan of his. So
yeah, I'm excited for him, and he's still relatively. He's been fighting since he was like 16 or something like that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, guy's got a lot of miles. Do you know Jonah from Tonga? That show, Mussy?
Yes. Yeah.
It's a little vulgar, but it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. But I didn't realize it was based off of a real person.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Yeah, I
I just
just
knew.
came.
I thought it was just a comedian guy, just who knew some Tongan stuff and just making a show. You know.
So apparently, according to this video, and because it's on social media, it must be true, right?
Oh. Oh, so this is the actual Jonah
Yeah.
from
So
Tonga.
apparently, it's inspired by a Tongan kid, and I didn't know this.
Okay, I didn't know it either.
Right. So, look at this comment right here. Only Palangis think Jonah from Tonga is racist. To most of us Tongans, it's funny. Well, because we all know a character like that growing up,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Katuni. We all have
Yeah.
that guy, one guy, whether it's in the village, in the school, or in your friend group, that's just
Yeah.
loves to entertain people, right? All they want to do is make people laugh, have a good time. That's their
It's that.
primary goal.
It's that person that you want somebody to do something bad with you. You tell that person he's gonna say yes. Let's
Yes.
go do it. And he's gonna come with you.
This is what we call
That's it.
yeah, it's a mixture of entertainer and Misini Mau Mau.
Yeah.
So apparently and it's funny to watch this because I mean, let's just look at the first part of this video. Look at all his peers. They're all just captivated by this guy, right? And
Yeah.
you're going to see later on, like even the teachers from the school loved the guy. Like, we'll just watch this real quick.
Yeah.
I get down, what?
Marie.
Shit. What's the form of my year,
Philippe was spectacular. He really was. That was another side of Philippe that I haven't seen.
Felipe. Marie, what Felipe?
Hey,
But it's
that's
kind of
funny.
cool. Like, I didn't realize like this is based off of an actual person.
That's my new information that I learned today. I had no idea. Now I know it was based on true events. That Jonah from Tonga. And that series still going? Or it stopped? It's already done.
I think it stopped. It's it's old school, but yeah, I thought that was interesting because I haven't even watched the whole series or a single full episode. I've just seen clips on YouTube.
Snippets. Yeah. I've seen
And it's kind of cool. I mean, that just goes to show like there's people and their character has an impact, man. Like who would have thought any of those people? Obviously, they're all captivated from even the teacher from the school. It's like, oh my gosh, Felipe was amazing. So it's like he's amazing, but then he continues to amaze them because then he would do something new, right? Like it's kind of cool. I thought that was kind of a cool little thought there. That we'll end on a semi-serious note. Let me see if I can find this video here real quick. It's a somewhat of a longer video, but I think it's worth listening to. So it's a little bit of a religious concept here.
Jana Reese, who did a survey back in 2016, and then it turned into a book called The Next Mormons. Did a survey with millennials, specifically kind of asking them both questions about what they love about the Church of Jesus Christ, what some of their struggles were, and they found
who's this guy? Just a member?
The statement, "I stopped."
I'm assuming he's a member, but it's just a clip I kind of saw. It's like, hey, it'd be interesting to react to.
Yeah.
Believing there was one true church is the second most common reason people give for leaving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Number one was feeling judged and misunderstood, which I found myself nodding my head saying, yeah, no, I've run into a lot of those explanations. But I was pretty surprised that number two is I stopped believing there was one true church.
This is his statement.
Kind of react to that, Mussy. That's kind of interesting. So the top two reasons why people leave the church is number one, they feel
Misunderstood or
judged
judged.
and
Yeah.
misunderstood, right? That kind of makes sense. Whenever we feel misunderstood,
Yeah.
doesn't matter what group you're a part of, you're like, yeah, I don't want to be around here. So that
Yeah.
makes sense. Unfortunate, but that makes sense. But the second one is not believing that there's one true church. What are your
That's
thoughts on that?
interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I can see that as maybe, well, because maybe there's many churches who accept different kind of beliefs or allow certain kind of behaviors. I don't know. It could be something like that, and then this is taken from the youth. I'm not surprised with some of the the youth who are being a little bit more experimental and uh, want to live in certain lifestyles or thinking whatever to do. So I can kind of see that why the church does not embrace that, and they're thinking, okay, there's got to be some other churches who are true too. This can't be the only true church. So
Mhm.
that's where I'm kind of coming from with that door. That's what I'm thinking. That's probably why.
Yeah. Some of the things that I was thinking of is the same reason why so many Americans hate America, right? Because they say America is supposed to be the greatest country, right? The
Hmm.
greatest, blah, blah, blah. And then they look around and then they say, oh, well, America made this mistake or got this wrong, right? Just like capitalism, right? They say capitalism's so great and amazing. It's created this wealth, but then they say, oh, but capitalism has poor people in it. So how can it be? You know what I mean? And I feel
Yeah.
that that's the same error that they do with the church is they say, oh, it can't be just one true church because if the church is true, then why does it make mistakes? If there's only one true church and this is the true church, then how is it that this month they'll make a decision and then 6 months later do a 180? And
Yeah.
then you start to say, well, how can this be the only true church if it's going to have errors in it? And so it kind of chips away in their ability to recognize, does a true church have to be perfect? Does it have to be flawless?
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, I think it comes back to what in your mind when you say a true church or a true something, does that mean it has to be spotless, just like capitalism?
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
believe in capitalism. I think it's the best system. Do I think it's the best ever? Probably not, because there's so much knowledge out there. But I will say, out of everything that's on the table, it seems to be the one that works the best.
The best. Well,
Right?
it's the only one that's actually helped people out of poverty the most, right?
Exactly.
We haven't found a system yet that's gonna bring
That
everybody.
can beat that.
They thought it was communism and socialism, but that has actually caused riots and actually made people's lives much more worse.
Mhm.
Example, Venezuela,
Yeah.
and Cuba
Run
and
out of
stuff. So
toilet paper.
yeah, or they function in a society that's rations, like Cuba. Everyone has rations on the resources
Food,
and
everything.
food and everything. So no, no, and no, those are good points, Dua, because it's either that or the young ones. They're not. It's well, they're a little bit out of, like, they're lucky in a sense of there hasn't been such a struggle for them to understand that human behavior is gonna be make mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Heavenly Father's using us, that we have flaws, but are using us to try to get us closer to Him and to understand His His way of navigating this complex life, so that we can return to Him. But you just the young people within the LDS Church are probably putting so much. They're having this too spotless thinking that if anyone, let's just say, if a church leader misspoke, if a church leader did something wrong or whatever, I'm just thinking, if somebody received a blessing and they weren't healed or what, all these little things, it's the instant. They want instant answers instead of being patient or waiting or not. Sometimes you're not gonna get it for a long time, or you know what I mean. I think
Mhm.
some of that is playing to it because we are living in a world that we want things instantly. So why can we get our blessings and our prayers answered instantly? I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. So it can't be the only true church.
Exactly. And this is kind of just managing expectations, right? And
Mm,
what's realistic, because when you study the scriptures, the the Israelites were the chosen people of God,
yeah.
and yet they were the ones who resisted him probably the most than anyone else. Same thing with the
Mm,
Nephites. The
mm,
Nephites were the ones that were kind of God said, "Yeah, you're
chosen.
going to be my people,"
Yeah.
and then they're the ones who reject him the most. So it's an unrealistic expectation, even based off of the scriptures, right? Because when
Mm,
you pay attention to the scriptures,
yes.
even those groups that were quote unquote chosen end up being the most stiff necked people.
No, and
So
here's another thing. They're not even probably studying the prophets. In Israel, a lot of the prophets in those times they made mistakes. I'm thinking like prophets of
Moses,
Moses, the
Moses,
prophet
that's
of
why he wasn't allowed into the promised land.
yes, David. He was one of the
Yeah,
few that had the military, like king, and also the prophet. He made a
yeah.
mis. He made a mistake. Like it's God has his own unique, mysterious ways on selecting people that are the strength, but doesn't mean they're gonna be, you know, being kind of like these clean slate. They're not gonna make mistakes. Like, dude, if you think of some of these prophets of old, they were not. You wouldn't think they would be. God would have chosen them, but God chose them. They had its purpose, and they were called to do His divine works. It's just that if they're gonna make a mistake, we're all humans. We're flaws, but it doesn't mean they're bad people. And what they're
Well,
doing is not the goal.
no,
I
and
don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
no,
That's what
I
I'm thinking,
agree.
Thor.
I agree 100%. Do you know what it takes? What do you have to be? Let me put it this way. In order to recognize perfection, guess what you
Mm,
have to be? Perfect. Only
mm,
perfection can recognize perfection. Okay. And we'll use the example Jesus was perfect, he
the
did
only one, yeah.
everything right,
Hmm.
and the Jews couldn't even recognize it. And they killed him. They actually saw perfection was presented to them, and they not only didn't recognize it, they wanted to destroy it. They killed it. So it's a false assumption to think or expect perfection, because you cannot comprehend perfection because we're imperfect.
Mm,
So
mm,
it's unfair. It's a disservice not only to you, but it's a disservice to perfection to assume perfection from anything. It's unrealistic, and you could never comprehend it, because the only way for you to say, "Oh, I see perfection," is you'd have to assume that you know what perfection is.
mm,
And we all know none of us are perfect. So it really just comes down to this false expectation
mm,
and maybe overconfidence in our ability to comprehend things to
mm.
come up with that. So
Good point. Yeah.
yeah, we'll give this a roll a little bit. They're going to read some quotes that are very interesting.
Okay.
If I can pull it up here. Mormonism is truth, and every man who embraces it feels himself at liberty to embrace every truth. Consequently, the shackles of superstition, bigotry, ignorance, and priestcraft fall at once from his neck, and his eyes are open to see the truth, and truth greatly prevails over priestcraft. And he keeps going on. Let me throw out another thought, but Brigham Young makes the same type of comment where he says that it doesn't matter where the truth comes from, be it from heaven or hell, and President Nelson says the same thing, whether it comes from revelation or from a laboratory, truth is truth.
Can I read the one from Brigham Young?
Yeah.
Just because it's so good, and then keep going with your thought. But Brigham Young, It is our duty and calling as ministers of the same salvation and gospel to gather every item of truth and reject every error, whether truth be found with professed infidels or with the Universalists or the Church of Rome or the Methodists, the Church of England, the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Quakers, the Shakers, or any other of the various and numerous different sects and parties, all of whom have more or less truth. It is the business of the elders of this church, Jesus, their elder brother being at their head, to gather up all the truths in the world pertaining to life and salvation, to the gospel we preach, to the sciences, to the philosophy, wherever it may be found in every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, and bring it to Zion.
Yep. Amen. Yeah, exactly.
There's truth out there that we don't have.
Absolutely, there is. And that's Joseph Smith. Mormonism is truth. So we need to go and find it wherever we can find it. Philosophy, other religions, science, whatever it is, the Lord's very clear about that in the Doctrine and Covenants as well, not just looking at words of his prophets of go and seek out of the best books, words of wisdom, go and study history and countries and kingdoms and study things above and things below. It's very clear that the Lord has put a lot of truth out there that is not contained in just one book of scripture, and not just contained, especially if we look at context of section 1 of the Doctrine and Covenants, the vast majority of our revelation that we use to govern the church and that we use to run the church and temple doctrine is not existent in the time that section 1 is given. So the idea that they had all truth when God says there's only true and living church is ridiculous.
Okay, so what that statement isn't saying is that the church has a corner mark on all truth.
Absolutely not.
It wasn't even saying that the church is perfectly organized in it, because it wasn't even fully organized
Not even close.
yet when he said that it was true and living church. So it doesn't mean some of those things. I think I limited my view of that statement to think, no, I know there's truth out there, but in my mind, in my ignorance, I think the way that I understood that was, well, other people have pieces of truth, but those pieces of truth we already have.
Exactly.
And so I go around and I notice that, oh yeah, you have some truth that relates back to the only true and living church, or you have another piece of truth. And sometimes I'll hear like missionaries like describe it that way, like, yeah, they all have these, yes, it's a puzzle. And so there's all these pieces, but we have the fullness of the puzzle. But that's not what you and I are saying here. And I don't think that's what Brigham and Joseph and others are saying is, no, that this church can be true and living, but it doesn't contain all the pieces even.
No, not even close.
And you're going to go, there's 7 billion people plus on this planet.
Just right now.
Right now. And God is doing things through all of them. And Latter-day Saints are like 0.0 something percent, right? And so to think that we have all the truth and maybe others kind of agree with us in some places, and it's much more than that.
Absolutely.
Much more than that.
Well, and if we believed that, we wouldn't believe our 9th article of faith, that there are many things yet to be revealed. And notice it doesn't say how they'll be revealed either. Are they going to be revealed through revelation? Are they going to be revealed through science? Are they going to be revealed through us studying and learning and all of a sudden having these books open to our eyes of what else is out there?
Yeah.
And so to say that the only true and living church means that we have all the truth in the world is so ridiculous
and arrogant
and
misguided.
Yes. And it's not correct.
Okay. So we don't have all the truth.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. And yet the church is still true.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you're fine with both.
100%.
Okay, good.
Any thoughts, Mercy?
No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that thing. Like we can learn a lot once you think as a member of the church that when people express their views and understanding of the gospel and how they perceive what Christ and the miracles he did and just different perspectives of Christianity, it's good you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot in those teachings, because I've gone to other churches and listened to some of their sermons and stuff. Some of them are very good, and I feel good and stuff to it. So if you feel like you've been in the church and you don't take other people's learnings into consideration, I think you miss out on other truths that you can add on to what you have in your knowledge of the gospel. That's just kind of what I was thinking there.
Yeah.
You have anything in particular, anything to
Yeah, a couple things that come to mind is obviously from what they're speaking to, and then I'll kind of go over to the broader theme of the goal of the podcast and everything else. Is first, I taught our elders quorum this past week, and it was on the talk of words matter from
Okay.
Elder Redland, right?
From this past general conference,
Not the one that just finished. I think it was the one before.
April. Okay.
And what really came to my mind is, what is truth? Right?
It's good and righteous.
Yes, it's good and righteous, but how do we determine what's good and righteous?
Whatever is the closest to God's commandments. I don't know.
Yeah, well, see, and that's where I was kind of heading with this, right?
Yeah.
And God's commandments can change. Like, for example, let's take Nephi. God says, "Thou shalt not kill." But what does he tell Nephi?
Kill.
Go kill. And he says, "Thou shalt not kill," but God says, "But if you're defending your family and your life, guess what? You can kill." So what I'm really getting to is, and we use the verse in First John chapter 1, verse 1, says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God." So we believe that the Word is Jesus, and that Jesus is the Savior, right? And why is Jesus the Savior and not Lucifer? Because God said through his words, Jesus is the Savior.
Yeah.
And Jesus says that he is the light and the truth. And why does he say he's the light and the truth? Because he does nothing of his own will, but only the Father's. So what I'm getting to is this. The truth is what God says it is. Right? And that's what truth is. Truth really comes down to what is God's will.
Yeah.
And what is his will for your life is
And
truth.
No, and that's the difficult part, right? Is how do we, what's the sign? That's what I'm trying to say. What's the sign of the truth, or what, right? Well, usually it's the prophet, that God helps us with the prophet, your own scripture studies, right?
Yeah, the Holy Ghost. That's
your
the
personal
ultimate.
revelation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry to interject though, but I was just thinking.
No.
Just thinking out loud.
100%. And so what I'm getting to is this. There is truth. Truth in the most simplest form is God's will. Yeah. And God says, there's nothing that I can come up with in my heart to do and not do it. So basically, whatever God says is truth, that is truth. And the reason why it's truth is because when God says something, it will happen. Right? So that's why it's truth. That's why what God says is truth. So what I'm getting to is this. Whatever God says or whatever God's will is, that's the truth. And you know what we have the opportunity to do? We have an opportunity to make truth with God. And what do I mean by that? When you are asking God to help you make a choice in life, help you with your choices, help you with your work, your family, your school, your relationships, you're in a sense asking God to make your choices truth. And it doesn't matter what this comes back to, you know, how we have that question is, how can we have choice and God still be able to accomplish everything? Right? Well, it's because God's choice and truth can be that you can make it not in the, and I don't want this to get confused with the woke, your truth.
Yeah.
The only reason why it's true is because God endorses it. And I use this example. There are many times in the scriptures, and Jesus said this, let it be so that the prophecies, that the words of the prophets may be fulfilled. What does that mean? That means it could have happened another way, But God says, because my prophet said it, and because these prophets were speaking on my behalf, we're going to make it true. We're going to fulfill it so that it becomes truth. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to, sorry for everyone there. We got a little bit religious there for a second, but I think this is very important in another sense on the goal of the podcast. We have to find the truth in regards to our ancestors and our people, because that's how we carry the truth to move forward. And we cannot say Tonga has all the truth, or the Tu'imanua has all the truth, or Tahiti has all the truth. Part of the journey that we're going through as this podcast is, we know there's truths out there, right? We're pretty comfortable in saying, here's a prime example. We're pretty comfortable in saying that the Tu'imanua existed.
Yeah.
And we think that's a truth, and we're trying to flesh that out. We're relatively comfortable that the Tu'itonga is an empire that spread through multiple islands. And we're trying to gather those pieces from all around Polynesia, whether it's oral history, scientific fact, and we're trying to bring it together to establish the truth of the past so that we understand where we come from, so that we can utilize that to make decisions to move forward as a people, as a group, to establish truths moving forward.
Yeah.
And understanding the truth from the past helps us make the future brighter and better and more meaningful for not only us, but for the generations that come after us. And really, that is one of the drivers of this podcast. That's why we say through Polynesian eyes. We're trying to understand through the eyes of our ancestors what happened in the past, and then use those eyes to help us navigate us into the future, to build the best future possible, not only for us, but for our ancestors into the future, so that we don't unknowingly or subconsciously allow other people to write our history, and then we lose our future, quote unquote, kind of like what our brothers and sisters did in Hawaii, where they gave people that they shouldn't have given power to legislate and to determine our future, because they are the ones who wrote the past, right? And that's something that I think we can also draw parallels, not only in a spiritual sense, but also on this historical, and in many ways, this spiritual journey in our history
Yeah.
and our people, and the culture that we bring, and how to leverage it for the future. Those are my closing thoughts, Masi. I'll let you have your closing thoughts and close us out for the day.
Nope. Thank you, Tua, for the opportunity to always join the Polynesian Eye podcast. I appreciate the viewers with their questions and participation. It was awesome. It's always good to have all you guys part of this podcast and discussion. Closing thoughts. Spirit, like I've always said, if Polynesian history is very important because it affects all of us with our history and finding our true history and origins, which is very important because we are a Polynesian nation. Another big thing is, that spiritual aspect to with, a lot of the world, a lot of the battles people go through are very spiritual battles that we go through, and more understanding of your, where we talk a lot about our cultural identity being as Polynesians is important, but we do have certain episodes that we touch on the spiritual side, which is very important, because it is the most important. Because I feel like once you know your spiritual identity, you can handle anything, right?
Navigate
You could
any challenge.
navigate. Yes, doesn't mean you're gonna win every battle, but are you gonna get there at the end? We're all just trying to be there at the end when the war is done on this earth. Maybe there's gonna be another war after this, but I'm just saying. But spiritual identity is very important. right? That's what makes us all of sons and daughters of God, and our cultural identity is very important too, in my opinion, because if it wasn't important, then we won't be able to navigate, because this is such a complex world, and God created countries, cultures, languages for a reason, and it's to maybe utilize your own nation here to maybe create a bigger nation with all of the other regions in the world. And we kind of mentioned the impacts of Polynesia through other
Mhm.
different societies, because that's why cultural identity is also important. And part of discovering that cultural identity is understanding our true origins as Polynesian people. But I'm just grateful to have this platform. We can touch on those two most important aspects of life: the spiritual and cultural identity through the Polynesian eyes, and hopefully, it's helpful to everyone that views this. This is a fun time. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to do this during our times that we are free. Looking forward to be in Hawaii the next couple of weeks.
Yes.
So until then, I don't know if maybe you'll do some episodes or anything on solo or whatever, but maybe until then I'll be absent for a little bit, and we'll catch up then, everyone. But appreciate everyone's contribution and everything you guys do to kind of move along. We've seen some increase the past week or so with this podcast, with the views and everything. So I appreciate everyone sharing the content and just talking about it. Typical Polynesian communication. Everyone's talking about it, and probably it's passing you through that way of communication.
Coconut
But
wireless.
coconut wire, yeah. But thank you, Malo.
Yep, Malo Masi. And this will probably, I need to make a list for this is another t-shirt, right? Just the navigator. Our ancestors are the greatest navigators of all time so far. And we need to leverage that to help us navigate the current world that we're in. The most connected world and the most challenges, the most pitfalls, and we have it in our blood and in our spirit. That skill set, that knowledge to be a navigator and be the greatest navigators that we can be in this new world. So, with that being said, stay curious, be bold, don't be afraid to ask the questions. And until next time, peace.
Peace, Malo.
Malo.